Chapter 1849. This scene was very strange. The flames were like a river spreading on the flat ground, forming an arc and trapping the few of them. However, the flames were only as thick as an adult's arm, and they were sealed under the mountain rocks. Perhaps it was because the layer of mountain rocks was very thin and had a special texture, but after being burned by the blue flames, they became almost transparent. Everyone could clearly see the flames jumping below. At a glance, it looked like a small ditch burning with flames was covered by a transparent jade board. Lord Lin. Seeing their arrival, the few people trapped in the line of fire all revealed excited expressions. It was only then that Chu Luiyue realized that their faces were abnormally red, and something was amiss. Moreover, between their brows, there was a hint of pain. It was as if they were suffering from pain. Her gaze swept down again. There was nothing unusual on the ground, but their appearance was clearly related to this line of fire. Lin looked at Sanson. "Third boss, do you have a way?" Sanson stood at the very front with her hands crossed. Her eyes were fixed on the blue flame burning under the transparent mountain rock, and her mind was racing. At this moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He was indeed very familiar with this aura, and this flame came from the same source as him. But this was not the power of that small space. After thinking about it, Sanson decided to tell the truth first. "Lord Lin, to be honest, I'm not completely confident about this matter." Hearing this, Lin's expression turned cold. Sanson had no choice but to continue. "Although this flame is the same as mine, it doesn't belong to my small space. So I don't know if I can control it and deal with it well." Lin stared at him suspiciously for a while. "Since it's the same flame, third boss can naturally control it. Why can't you solve it?" Sanson didn't know what to say. "Lord Lin, let me tell you this. The power in that small space is indeed under my control, but with my current strength, I can only control a very small part of it. And this flame is beyond the range of that small space, so of course I can't control it. It's not that I don't want to help you, it's just..." Lin's expression changed a few times. Looking at the few people who were suffering, his brows furrowed tightly. "Forget it. Just do your best." If he really couldn't save them, he would think of other ways. Sanson swallowed hard. Then, consider it a failure," Molin snappily retorted. "No matter what the result is, we will not do anything to you. Just go ahead and do it." This third boss was really troublesome. Sanson breathed a sigh of relief. Although the people of the Black Sword sect always went back on their word, and never followed any rules, the Black Sword sect's disciples had always been the ones who went back on their word. However, he still had to fight for this promise. Wasn't it better to have a little more protection? He took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and took a few more steps forward. At this moment, he was only a step away from that line of fire. Then, he spread his feet apart and raised his arms slightly. A cluster of blue flames quickly surged out of his palm. Almost at the same time, a crisp cracking sound suddenly came from the ground. Crack! A crack appeared on the transparent mountain rock. The flames below seemed to have sensed something and were ready to move. It was as if they would charge out in the next moment. Digression: the Spring Festival event is at the top of the comment section. Everyone is welcome to participate. My body is much better now. I will continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1850. There was no wind in the surroundings, and everyone was waiting quietly. Crack! Cracking sounds came one after another, and the cracks on the surface quickly spread like a spider web. The flames below jumped even more fiercely. It was like a trapped beast that had been bound for too long, and finally smelled a trace of freedom, and started to become anxious. Sanson's expression was grave, and cold sweat quickly appeared on his forehead. Because he realized that the situation was worse than he had expected. That was because his origin power was being consumed at an astonishing rate, but the flames below still hadn't come out even after a long time. What worried him even more was that he had already faintly sensed that the aura and pressure of the blue flame suppressed below seemed to be stronger than his. Even if he could barely save the person, he was afraid that he would have to pay a great price. Thinking of that scene, Sanson's heart ached again. Didn't he just obtain a small space by chance? Did these people have to torment him like this? Not only did they ask him for so many treasures, they even gave him this kind of task. He just wanted to do a small business and earn some money. Unfortunately, Molin and the rest were watching from the side, and Master and Her Highness were also present, so he did not even have a chance to escape. Sanson sighed in his heart. For today's battle, no matter what, he had to settle this matter properly. Otherwise, Master and the rest would be implicated by him. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath, and circulated the force in his body even more crazily. The flames in his palm burned even more fiercely. Poof! He flipped his wrist, and the flames in his hand flew out, transforming into a fire whip in midair. Then, the fire whip swung down. It hit right on top of the transparent mountain rock. Boom! In an instant, the rock shattered. The flames that were suppressed inside began to sweep out wildly. They quickly intertwined with Sanson's fire whip. Chee-chee! Sparks flew everywhere. Both sides fought fiercely. Everyone present was shocked. They were clearly flames that looked exactly the same, but they were incompatible with each other. At this moment, Molin finally believed what Sanson had said. It seemed that the flames buried in the mountain really had nothing to do with him, and it was indeed not something he could control. Smack! Sanson gritted his teeth, and swung out another fire whip, pressing down on it again. At this moment, the strength of the two sides was almost equal. Quick! He shouted anxiously. The few people who were trapped in the line of fire were already stunned by what they saw. It was only after hearing those words that they finally reacted and rushed out in a hurry. However, just as they were about to step out, a blue flame suddenly broke through the seal of 3-3's power and burned fiercely. Boom! The flame burned rapidly, reaching the height of a person in an instant. Ah! The young man at the front was caught off guard and was hit by the heat wave. He screamed and took a few steps back. He covered his face and fell to the ground. Chu Luyue glanced at it. More than half of the young man's body was already covered in the blue flames. An intense burning pain engulfed him, almost swallowing him whole. He frantically slapped at the flames on his body, trying to escape from the pain. However, this flame was not ordinary. How could it be extinguished so easily? Several people at the side quickly retreated. Seeing this situation, they seemed to hesitate and wanted to step forward, but no one really did. Obviously, they were afraid that they would be implicated. At this moment, it was too late to run away. Why would they step forward and give up their lives? Mo Lin frowned and tightened his grip on the sword at his waist. However, when he saw the miserable state of the young man being burned, a trace of hesitation flashed across his eyes. In the end, he did not move. Since he was already in this state, there was no point in saving him. The young man's heart-wrenching cries of pain were enough to make one's heart tremble. However, the people of Ink Sword Sect, whether they were inside or outside the line of fire, all chose to ignore him. Chu Luyue lowered his eyes, hiding the mockery in his eyes. This Ink Sword Sect was just as 3-3 had said. They were all heartless, cruel, and bloodthirsty people. However, because they were worried that it would affect them, they had all chosen to stand aside and watch without hesitation. Really, after a while, the young man's voice gradually became softer. His entire body was frozen in place and could not move at all. He was easily swallowed by the blue flames. He was being burned alive. Chu Liyue frowned, a trace of doubt suddenly appearing in his heart. Mo Lin and the others did not seem to care much about the lives of these people. Then why did they have to go through so much trouble to invite 3-3 over? And they even said that they wanted to save people? Chu Liyue's mind raced. His gaze once again fell on the flames emerging from under the mountain rock. Their true goal was probably never to save people. 3-3 clenched his teeth and once again activated the little remaining force in his body. He threw out a ball of fire, wanting to suppress the cluster of flames that had suddenly appeared. However, his strength was limited. After a while, his flames were swallowed by the other party. His heart turned cold. He was really no match for this flame. Seeing this scene, the remaining few people did not dare to rashly step forward. The previous one had already died a miserable death. They did not want to follow in his footsteps. The scene fell into a stalemate. 3-3 was angry and anxious. This group of people was really hopeless. They did not grab hold of such a good opportunity just now. Now, they were cowering and did not dare to come out. How was it possible for him to bring them out so easily with his own strength? However, he did not dare to rush Mo Lin. After all, the people were theirs. As long as they could see that he had done his best, as for whether he could succeed, Mo Lin did not even make a move just now. As an outsider, what was there to care about? Thinking of this, 3-3 hurriedly took out a pill and consumed it to replenish his force. He tried to suppress the flames again. The result was, of course, futile. Because with the passage of time, not only did the aura and pressure of the flames emitted from the mountain rock not weaken, it seemed to have become even stronger. 3-3 was originally barely on par with the other party. Now that the enemy was stronger and he was weaker, the scales of victory naturally began to tilt slowly. Waves of exhaustion came from his body. 3-3 finally could not help but say, "Lord Mo Lin, I'm afraid. I can't hold on any longer." Mo Lin's expression turned even colder when he heard this. He thought that bringing him over would be able to smoothly resolve the matter, but he did not expect that it would still not work. Puff. Another cluster of flames rushed out. 3-3's line of defense began to gradually collapse. Following the frantic burning of the flames, the people trapped within the flames were also suffering greatly. Finally, one of them seemed to be unable to take it anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. The next moment, a cluster of flames suddenly exploded from his body. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1851. Seeing this scene, Chu Liyue's pupils shrank slightly, but she instantly understood something. No wonder these people looked so strange just now. It turned out that the power of the flame had already invaded their bodies. The burning of the internal fire not only consumed the origin power crazily, but also burned and devoured the muscles, bones, and blood vessels in the body inch by inch. This kind of pain was probably unbearable for a normal person. At this moment, the power of the flame rose again and broke through the limit that person could endure. Naturally, his body exploded and he died. With this one dead, the remaining few were obviously not far away. Sure enough, just as this thought flashed through her mind, another explosion sounded. Another one died. This time, there wasn't even the slightest bit of time to react. Swoosh! Mo Lin drew the sword at his waist. The few people behind him, who were originally in deep shock, hurriedly drew their swords when they saw his action. However, their movements were somewhat weak, and their eyes were filled with panic and confusion. Obviously, everything that happened in front of them had exceeded their expectations, and they were all dumbfounded. Chu Luiyue was vigilant and was about to move when Rongxiu suddenly squeezed her hand gently. Don't be hasty. These people's target was not Sanson, nor was it them. Instead, it was this strange flame. His movements were very light, and at this moment, Mo Lin and the others' attention was focused on the 100 years, so they did not notice the interaction between the two. Chu Luiyue calmly withdrew her aura. She looked at the ground again and suddenly thought of a question. This flame. Where did it come from? On the surface, this flame seemed to have emerged from the mountain rocks, but what about below? This was halfway up the mountain. If this flame was really suppressed below, then why did it suddenly appear now? For some reason, Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of the scene in the small space. The rust on the black shield peeled off, and the blue flame came from the heavens, burning upside down. Boom! A loud sound suddenly rang out. Chu Luiyue was shocked. She looked over and saw that the blue flame had suddenly erupted. It almost formed a huge wall of fire. Retreat! Sanson shouted anxiously. At the same time, he quickly turned around and ran towards Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu. His chubby hands waved rapidly in the air, quickly forming a barrier. It protected the three of them. A berserk power swept over. In the next moment, it slammed into the barrier set up by Sanson. Sanson's face paled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Luiyue frowned and immediately stepped forward. However, Rongxiu was faster than her. He waved his sleeve, and a gentle force supported Sanson's body. Sanson was able to gasp for breath after receiving help, but it turned around and coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. Chu Luiyue quickly stepped forward and handed over a pill. "Boss, are you all right?" She grabbed Sanson's wrist. A gentle yet powerful force flowed into Sanson's body, quickly suppressing and sorting out the chaotic energy in her body. Sanson was overwhelmed by the favor and raised his head. Just as he was about to thank her, he remembered their current identities and quickly swallowed the rest of his words. I am fine." He coughed and opened his mouth silently at Chu Luiyue with his back facing Mo Lin and the others. Chu Luiyue stared at him. Although Sanson was in a sorry state and his face was pale, his eyes were clear and his breathing was stable. He probably didn't hurt his insides. Only then did she let go and take half a step back. What she didn't know was that the reason why Sanson wasn't injured was because when the power of the flame hit him crazily, it seemed to have been especially merciful to him. Although the flame had been fighting with him, it did not have any killing intent towards him. This feeling was very subtle. At first, he didn't notice it. It was only when he saw the flames easily end the lives of those people that he realized it. Sanson thought about it carefully and guessed that the reason why the flame was like this was precisely because he was related to that small space and had a flame of the same origin in his body. He secretly rejoiced, but he also knew that he couldn't let Mo Lin and the others see through this. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. Thus, Sanson took a deep breath and looked at Mo Lin and the others nervously. "Master Mo Lin. Are you all right?" Mo Lin and the others were in a much worse situation than Sanson. All of them were injured, and they all looked very serious. As the strongest one among them, Mo Lin's situation was slightly better, but blood was flowing out of the corner of his mouth. That scalding flame, just a moment ago, almost, hearing Sanson's voice, he immediately looked up. His eyes were filled with undisguised anger. When Sanson escaped just now, he didn't care about them at all. Sanson trembled under his gaze, but he cursed in his heart. "What are you looking at? It's natural for me to protect my master. Don't tell me I have to risk my life to save you. Who do you think you are?" "Master Mo Lin. I was anxious just now." "I'm really sorry." As Sanson spoke, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked very miserable. Mo Lin's breath was stuck in his chest and he couldn't move it up or down. Although he was angry, Sanson wasn't one of them. When he was in danger, he naturally had no obligation to help them. There was nothing to say. He didn't even have the right to reprimand him. Humph. Mo Lin sneered and ignored Sanson. He only turned his head to look at the mountainside. Just now, they were overturned by that terrifying heat wave and had retreated quite a distance. However, the few people who were previously trapped there had already been devoured by the flames and had completely disappeared without a trace. That faint blue flame was slightly restrained now and surged out of the mountain rocks. It burned silently and was about half the height of a person. Cracks could be seen clearly on the ground. Suddenly, Chuliuyue's heart sank. Because on the ground not far away, a mountain rock suddenly became transparent. Below, another flame rose. This flame was spreading. Digression, there's a catch-up tonight. The time is uncertain, but it should be very late. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1852. Could it be that the flames really came from Longqing Peak? Mo Lin muttered softly as he stared at the spreading flames with a cold and solemn expression. Sir, what should we do now? The people behind him looked worried and nervous. They were here to save people, but not only did they fail to save them, but they also made the situation worse. Previously, the higher-ups had instructed them to be careful about everything related to Longqing Feng. In the end, now that the mountain fire had started, it would definitely attract the attention of many people. In the end, it was likely that they would have to bear the responsibility for this crime. Mo Lin clenched his teeth. He did not expect things to turn out like this. It did not matter if those people died, but if the fire continued to burn like this, even he would not be able to bear the consequences. Return immediately. Mo Lin made a prompt decision. They had already experienced the power of the blue flames. Even if all of them worked together, they would not be able to deal with the flames. Since that was the case, it was better to go back and ask for instructions. Even if he was going to be punished, it was still better than getting out of hand. The remaining people looked at each other secretly and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Mo Lin was still fine. After all, he had a high status. Even if he did something wrong, the vice sect leader would not casually punish him. However, it was different for them. Needless to say, they knew what awaited them when they returned. However, they did not dare to disobey Mo Lin's orders and could only agree. Yes. Mo Lin's gaze turned and landed on Sanson and the others. Boss Sanson, we'll have to trouble you to come with us. Sanson had participated in most of this matter. Of course, he had to go back with them to explain. Sanson was very annoyed, but he knew that he had to go. He did not hesitate and nodded. It's my duty. It's all because I'm not strong enough, so... He blamed himself and coughed as he spoke. In the eyes of others, his face was pale and haggard. He had really tried his best just now. Mo Lin frowned. Boss Sanson, are you okay? Sanson quickly shook his head. Cough, 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 I'm fine. It's just that, cough, cough, my qi and blood are not flowing smoothly. I'll be fine after some rest. As he spoke, he had already reached Mo Lin's side. Lord Molin, then shall we leave now? However, Mo Lin did not move. He glanced sideways at Chu Luyue and Rongxiu, who were not far away. Sanson's heart skipped a beat. Then, as if he suddenly remembered something, he turned around and shouted at the two. This is none of your business. You guys can go back first. Third boss. Mo Lin said coldly, interrupting him. His tone was calm, but there was no room for refusal. Since the two of them are here, they naturally have to return with us to give the vice-sect master and the others an explanation. Sanson's expression froze. Just as he was in a dilemma, Chu Luiyue stepped forward and gently nodded. "Boss, since Lord Molan has said so, let's go together." Sanson's hands clenched and loosened, and her heart seemed to be tightly gripped by something. Sigh. Her mistress still didn't know the temperament of these people from the Black Sword sect. It was easy to enter the Black Sword sect, but it was difficult to leave. However, Mo Lin's attitude was firm. It was obvious that he would not let them go easily. He took a deep breath and pretended to be serious. The Black Sword sect is not a place where you can go as you wish. Lord Molan is giving you face today. When you arrive, you must follow me closely and be careful with your words and actions. You must not act recklessly. Don't offend the lords. Do you understand? After he finished speaking, he looked at Mo Lin. Lord, shall we leave now? I see that the fire is spreading quite quickly. We must return quickly and report the situation. These words finally struck a chord in Molan's heart. He nodded. With a flash, he quickly headed in the direction of the Black Sword sect. Sanson turned around and gave Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu a look. The three of them followed unhurriedly. You manner. The courtyard was silent. Wu Yao was practicing martial arts. Yu Jiu was practicing her sword. Shi Fang went to the backyard to rummage. Little Hachi went to Sanson's storeroom to rummage for herbs. As for 13, after breaking through, he had been cultivating in his room for the past few days. At this time, he was also not around. Swoosh! Yu Jiu stabbed with her sword and frowned. Then, she casually swung her sword and put it away. She glanced in the direction of the door. Fifth brother, it's already so late. Why aren't Master and the rest back yet? Wu Yao stopped and let out a long breath. Didn't third brother say that he brought Master and Her Highness to Qingshui Cliff today? I heard that the small space is very big. It will take a while to finish looking around. They won't be back so soon, right? Yu Jiu shook her head. But it shouldn't be so quiet until now. I don't know why, but I keep feeling a little nervous. Wu Yao chuckled. It's not the first time Master and Her Highness came to Peach Blossom Cove. There's also Sanson. What are you worried about? Yu Jiu pursed her lips. Of course, she knew this. It was just that, she kept feeling uneasy, as if something was about to happen. Fifth brother, why don't I go take a look? Wu Yao hesitated for a moment. Do you know how to get to Qingshui Cliff? Yu Jiu was speechless. Peach Blossom Cove was so big. Even if she knew the general direction, it would indeed waste a lot of time and energy. Anyway, Master and the rest are there. I should be able to find them soon. Yu Jiu was speaking when she saw Tsuni walk out of the house from the corner of her eye. She hurriedly bowed. Big brother. Wu Yao also looked back. Big brother, why did you come out? Tsuni didn't answer their questions. He just stood under the porch and looked up at the sky in the distance. His long and indifferent eyes narrowed slightly as if he was thinking about something. That commotion just now, you don't have to go. Tsuni suddenly said. Yu Jiu was stunned for a moment before she realized that he was talking about her. Big brother, our master and the rest coming back? Tsuni pondered for a moment. I'm afraid they won't be back for a while. This time, Wu Yao's expression also changed. What did that mean? Could it be that master and the rest had encountered some trouble? Tsuni shook his head at the two of them. Both of you stay here for the time being. Just act as usual. If anyone comes to investigate, as long as they don't come in, don't make a move. I'm going out for a while. With that said, he disappeared on the spot without waiting for the two of them to ask anything else. Yu Jiao and Wu Yao exchanged glances, looking at Big Brother's reaction. I'm afraid there's really going to be trouble. Wu Yao was silent for a moment. Don't worry, Master won't be at a disadvantage. Let's just wait here in peace. Ink Sword Sect. Chu Luyue looked up at the 3 words on the signboard. The strokes were powerful and filled with killing intent. Digression, there's still one more update, but it's already very late. It's the same if you read it tomorrow. Chapter 1853. Welcome, Lord Mo Lin. The guard standing at the door bowed respectfully. Mo Lin did not linger for long. He merely nodded his head with a cold expression and directly strode into the room. Sanson and the others followed behind him. Perhaps it was because of Mo Lin that although the guards were somewhat surprised, they quickly restrained their expressions and lowered their eyes to their nose and their noses to their hearts. Sanson nervously swallowed his saliva. Although he had been in contact with Ink Sword Sect for the past 2 years, he had rarely entered through the main door. This time, he did not know what kind of storm he would face. He did not even know when he would be able to come out. Thinking that his master was still behind him, his wildly beating heart finally calmed down a lot. Taking a deep breath, he stood on his heels. Chu Luyue and Rong Xiao looked at each other, then walked forward without a word. The moment Chu Luyue crossed the threshold, she immediately felt a faint energy wave pass by her body. Her heart tightened. There was actually a transparent barrier here. More importantly, she did not sense it at all before coming here. The person who could set up this barrier must be extremely powerful. Chu Luyue became even more wary of Ink Sword Sect. These thoughts quickly flashed through her mind, but she didn't show it on her face. Along the way, she lowered her head slightly, like a servant who had not seen much of the world. She nervously and silently followed behind Sanson. Rong Xiao was right beside her. She could even smell the faint fragrance on his body. This made her feel much more at ease. Today's visit was purely an accident, but it was indeed a rare opportunity to investigate this Ink Sword Sect. Thinking back to the scene she saw that day, the rolling dark clouds in the sky, and the countless flashes of Tianlei, she felt that there was something wrong with this Ink Sword Sect. Where is the Vice Sect Master? I have something important to report. The moment Mo Lin walked through the main door, someone came up to him. Hearing Mo Lin's words and looking at Mo Lin's expression, that person knew that something had happened and hurriedly said, the Vice Sect Master is currently practicing his sword in the backyard. I will go ask for instructions. No need, I'll go myself. Mo Lin waved his hand and walked towards the backyard. The matter was urgent, so there was no time for that. Lord Mo Lin, these people? Seeing that he couldn't stop them, the man didn't say anything more. However, when he looked at Sanson and the others, his expression was very hesitant. Of course, they knew this third boss. However, didn't he just come here yesterday? Furthermore, in the past, he had always come here alone and had never brought anyone with him. Why did he bring 2 attendants today? Lord Mo Lin should know the rules. In that case, there must be a reason why he had to bring the 2 of them here. Mo Lin stopped in his tracks. Let them come together. The man hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. Sanson instantly broke out in cold sweat. The backyard of the Black Sword Sect. Even he had never been there before. If this really happened, it would be fine for him, but for the 2 of them, Sanson gritted her teeth and looked at Mo Lin's back. She cursed the other party's ancestors in her heart. This Mo Lin was clearly determined to find trouble with them. Compared to Sanson's nervousness, Chu Luyue's state of mind was much better. When Mo Lin had asked them to come over, she had already known that they were in big trouble today. However, now that things had come to this, they had no other choice. Just like that, the group walked towards the backyard. The Black Sword Sect's mansion was bigger and more imposing than the Yu residence. However, there were much fewer people here than Chu Luiyue had expected. The entire mansion seemed somewhat empty. At the very least, this was the case for the places they had passed. Chu Luiyue thought to herself. It was said that the Black Sword Sect had been expanding. In the past 2 years, the sect's strength had been constantly increasing. Logically speaking, there should be many people here. However, from what they had seen, that didn't seem to be the case. However, the further in they went, the more she felt the surrounding atmosphere become tense. Even Mo Lin's expression became much more serious. Finally, after walking for a long time, they finally arrived at the gate of the backyard. Just as Mo Lin was about to step forward, a person walked out from inside. In that instant, Chu Luiyue clearly felt that the surrounding space seemed to have solidified. Mo Lin was the first to bow. "Greetings, Vice Sect Master." The people behind him hurriedly knelt down as well. Sanson didn't kneel. His status here was special, and there was no need for him to do so. However, when he saw the person who had come, his attitude immediately became more cordial. Chu Luiyue only gave him a hurried glance, then quickly lowered her eyes. She only had time to see a black figure. As for his appearance, she didn't look at it. She was very clear that this person was the second in command of the Black Sword Sect, Mo Yun. In front of such a strong person, any small movements could expose her identity. Hence, she was very cautious. Rong Xiao beside her was naturally the same. The two of them stood at the back, as if they didn't exist at all. Chu Luiyue followed suit and bowed, then stared at her feet. She heard a voice. "Mo Lin. Why did you come here so rashly?" Even if he was facing his confidant, his voice still carried a faint cold aura. Mo Lin directly knelt down and asked for forgiveness. "Vice Sect Master, Mo Lin is guilty. Please punish me." Mo Yun's expression turned cold. "Did you just come back from launching phone?" Chu Luiyue was suddenly a little surprised. Previously, from what they said, Mo Yun didn't know about this matter. Now that Mo Lin hadn't said anything, how could he guess that it was related to launching phone? Digression, the comments section will start at midnight. Good night, everyone. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1854. Mo Lin lowered his head even more. He immediately explained everything that had happened at Launching Peak in detail. With every word he said, Mo Yun's face became colder. After listening to Mo Lin, Mo Yun's expression could no longer be described as ugly. "Deputy Sect Leader, this is all because of our incompetence. Slap." Before Mo Lin could finish his sentence, Mo Yun slapped him harshly and interrupted him. The loud sound of the slap made the atmosphere even colder. The other people from Mo Jin sect who were kneeling at the side were shocked when they saw the situation. Mo Lin was Mo Yun's confidant and was highly regarded. Mo Yun had never been so angry with him before and had never slapped Mo Lin in public like this. It was obvious that he was really furious. Mo Lin knew that he was at fault and did not dare to beg for mercy. He only groaned in pain and knelt down. "What did I tell you before? It seems that all of you have forgotten." Mo Yun's face was ashen. He could not wait to kill all these people in front of him. How many times had he told them to be careful? In the end, they still caused such a big trouble. Blood flowed from the corner of Mo Lin's mouth. But Mo Yun was still not appeased. He stepped forward and kicked him in the chest. "You did a good job." This time, he used a lot of strength. Mo Lin's body flew out uncontrollably and landed heavily on the ground. Poof! He spat out another mouthful of blood and his face was as pale as a ghost. Seeing that Imo Yun was so angry, the rest of the people were anxious. Since the deputy sect leader was so angry, he definitely would not punish Imo Lin alone. They were afraid that all of them, or all the people who went to Longqing Peak together here. Imo Yun suddenly turned around and looked at the few of them coldly. Imo Lin got up with difficulty and answered weakly. Deputy sect leader, they are all here, swoosh. Before he finished his sentence, Imo Yun had already attacked. A cold sword light flashed past. The few of them were beheaded. Blood splattered everywhere. The few of them did not even have time to beg for mercy before their lives were taken. A head rolled to the side of Chu Liuyue's feet. A few drops of warm and sticky blood splashed onto her boots. That person's eyes bulged, and his face was filled with deep shock and fear. His face was terrifying. The corner of her eye twitched slightly. Now, in front of the backyard gate, other than Imo Yun and Imo Lin, there were only the three of them left. Seeing this scene, Sanson's heart almost jumped out of her chest. Mother! Imo Yun was going to silence them. With the exception of Imo Lin, the rest were dealt with by him without even batting an eyelid. This Imo Yun did not even let off his own people, let alone others. Sanson said in a trembling voice. Vice Sect Master. Third boss, for the sake of our past friendship, I'll give you face. As for your men, you just have to deal with them yourself. Imo Yun's words were concise and comprehensive, but he requested Sanson to personally take action and kill Chu Luyue and Rong Xiu. Chu Luyue slowly clenched his fists in his sleeves. Sanson's mind went blank for a moment. This, he swallowed hard. His throat was dry and his whole body was tense. Vice Sect Master, these two servants of mine just followed me to pick herbs today. They don't know anything else. You also know that it's not easy for me to train these people. Imo Yun glanced at Sanson, his eyes cold. So, third boss is not willing to cooperate. Sanson gritted his teeth. Asking him to kill his own people, what kind of cooperation was this? It was fine if he took his heavenly treasures on normal days, but now he was even worse. He coughed and looked troubled. Vice Sect Master, you want me to do something else, no problem. But this. I really can't do it. Imo Yun frowned. Usually, Sanson was very easy to talk to, and it was rare to see him disobey his orders for anything. It's just two servants, what's the big deal? If third boss feels sorry for them, I'll send a few more useful ones to you. Anyway, the one thing that Black Sword Sect did not lack was people. Sanson complained incessantly. He took a deep breath. Vice Sect Master, I have always respected you very much, and I also know that I can be where I am today all because of you. Today, if you want something else, I will give it to you without hesitation. But if you want their lives now, forgive me for not agreeing. He did not seem to notice that Imo Yun's aura had suddenly turned cold, and said in a deep voice. I'm just doing a small business in Peach Blossom Dock with my own people. If I kill them myself today in order to protect myself, how many people in Yu Mansion will be disappointed in the future if this news spreads out? Imo Yun said proudly. What happened in Black Sword Sect will not be spread out, and no one will know. But I know. Sanson's attitude was rarely tough, and he said word by word. Even if others don't know, but heaven and earth know, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep peacefully from now on. Swish! Imo Yun waved the long sword in his hand, and the cold and sharp sword tip was pressed against Sanson's neck. Third boss, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. A sharp pain came from his neck. A faint smell of blood spread at the tip of his nose. Sanson's face was very pale, but his expression was unusually firm. Vice Sect Leader, I know what you're worried about. But I can swear with my life that I won't let anyone know about today's matter. Mo Yun stared at Sanson suspiciously. In fact, he really did not expect that this matter would cause such a big reaction from Sanson. It's just two servants. Looking at the anger and unwillingness in Sanson's eyes, Mo Yun's heart was slightly moved. As the saying goes, a rabbit will bite when it's anxious. It seemed that they had really forced him into a corner. Perhaps it was because yesterday's matter of doubling the medicinal herbs had already made him quite dissatisfied, and today's matter, he could not bear it anymore and finally exploded. Mo Yun naturally had a brain to be able to become the vice sect leader. With a slight twist, he came up with a reason for Sanson's abnormal behavior. In fact, he was right. After a series of things, Sanson's tolerance for them had indeed reached the limit. However, the main reason why he exploded was actually because these two people were his master and his master's man. How could he not make a fuss? Even if he offended the other party to death today, he had to do it. But Mo Yun knew nothing about this. After repeatedly weighing in his heart, Mo Yun finally put away the sword, and his expression eased a little. Third boss, why are you in such a hurry? You're my Ma Jin sect's distinguished guest. Since you want to keep them, then keep them. Sanson looked at Mo Yun, and after confirming that he was not joking, he breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, Sanson was in a hurry. I hope Vice Sect Leader doesn't mind. Mo Yun shook his head. It's a small matter. It's just that I can trust Third Boss, but I can't trust the two of them. If Third Boss wants to take them away safely, it's also possible, as long as they take the energy dispersing pill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1855. Sanson's face changed. The so-called energy dispersing pill was a kind of highly poisonous pill. After taking this pill, it would not endanger one's life, but it would make the cultivator unable to continue cultivating and could only be trapped in the current realm for the rest of his life. For cultivators, this was more painful than death. Moreover, the poison of the energy dispersing pill would act up once a month. When the poison acted up, the whole body would be in severe pain and it would be worse than death. Only by taking the antidote regularly could the pain be relieved. However, this so-called antidote was unable to completely remove the poison. In other words, once the energy dispersing pill was taken, there was almost no cure for the rest of one's life. Although this did not take their lives, it changed a more painful and prolonged way to torture and coerce them. Deputy Sect Leader, I'm afraid this is not very appropriate. That energy dispersing pill. Before he finished speaking, Mo Yun's eyes turned cold. Boss San, I'm giving you face, but don't push your luck. Everything. In the end, you'd better take care of yourself. Sanson shuddered. Chu Luiyue suddenly spoke. I'm willing to take the energy dispersing pill. Sanson quickly glanced at his master. Are you sure? Chu Luiyue nodded. The energy dispersing pill. It's just a pill. What's there to worry about? Seeing her calm expression, Sanson was relieved. Mo Yun took out a jade bottle and threw it over. Sanson quickly caught it and opened it to take a look. There were indeed 2 energy dispersing pills inside. He hesitated for a moment and handed the bottle to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue poured it out without hesitation, took one herself, and handed the other to Rongxiu. Looking at the slender white hand that suddenly stretched out in front of him and the green energy dispersing pill lying quietly in the palm, Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. He really didn't know whether his wife was too careless or had too much confidence in him. She sent such a poison just like that. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and he also took the pill. Seeing that both of them had taken the energy dispersing pill, Sanson turned his head to look at Mo Yun. Deputy Sect Leader, is it okay now? Mo Yun nodded. They couldn't kill 3 by 3. Since he wanted to protect these 2 people, he would keep them alive for the time being. He believed that even he wouldn't dare to casually reveal these things. Alright, that's all for today. Molin, come with me. As Mo Yun spoke, he planned to make a trip to Lan Qingfeng personally. Sanson saw that he didn't seem to want her to follow him. She hesitated for a moment and asked, since this matter is settled, then, we will take our leave first. We won't disturb you any further, Mo Yun said indifferently. What's the rush? This time, third boss got injured because he helped us. Why don't he rest here for a couple of days? It won't be too late to go back when his body is better. The 2 of them can take care of you. Sanson's heart sank. He originally still wanted to say something, but Mo Yun already ignored him and left directly. Mo Lin got up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and hurriedly followed. Looking at that resolute back view, Sanson swallowed the rest of her words. This time, they would have to stay here for a while until Lan Qingfeng's problem was solved. However, this was easier said than done. Based on what they saw previously, even if Mo Yun went there personally, he might not be able to suppress it. Soon, someone walked over from the side. Third boss, please, Sanson had no choice but to follow. Let's go. Sanson was arranged to stay in a courtyard not far from Mo Yun's residence. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao were naturally trapped here too. The courtyard wasn't big, but there were people guarding outside. From time to time, there would be patrols passing by. Obviously, they were treated as prisoners. In the room, Sanson listened to the noise outside and sighed again. They are directly putting us under house arrest. As he spoke, he looked up and looked at Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao. Master, Your Highness, what should we do? When he came in, he had already set up a barrier to make sure that no one could hear them. Only then did he dare to speak. However, Chu Luiyue looked relaxed as she sized up the room. What are you afraid of? Didn't they ask us to stay here and recuperate? I think the condition of this place is not bad. It is even more luxurious than your manor. Sanson, you don't like it? Sanson had a bitter face. Master, don't make fun of me. I don't have the mood now. Your manor couldn't be compared to this place, but that was because he didn't dare. Ink Sword Sect was so powerful here. No matter how stupid he was, he knew when to keep a low profile. Besides, even if there was a mountain of gold and silver in front of him, he wouldn't be happy. His life was hanging by a thread. The spirit dispersing pill you ate just now, are you all right? And Your Highness, Sanson blamed himself. It's all my fault for being too useless, it's fine. Chu Luiyue shook her head nonchalantly as her lips curved up. She had eaten more poisonous pills before. This spirit-dispersing pill was nothing to worry about. As for Rong Xiao, his strength and trump cards were stronger than hers. There was nothing to worry about. Sensing her expression, Rong Xiao couldn't help but laugh. You're really not worried about your husband at all, Chu Luiyue blinked. If I don't even have that much confidence, then I'm going overboard. Of course, she knew her man the best. Upon hearing this, Rong Xiao thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. He raised his eyebrows and leaned back in his chair with a half-smile. It's really hard to make you feel sorry for you. Chu Luiyue shrugged. Sometimes, it's really annoying when my husband is too powerful. Sanson, who was ignored, you two still have the mood to flirt at a time like this. Can you please consider that there's someone here who has been worried about you all the way? Seeing Sanson's aggrieved expression, Chu Luiyue finally comforted him. What are you worried about? Your Ink Sword Sect's treasure bowl. They won't do anything to you. Sanson said faintly. I'm worried about you and Your Highness. Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Worried about us? Sanson, don't you think it's a little unnecessary? Sanson almost couldn't catch his breath. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Don't worry. When we were here, Ink Sword Sect didn't even exist. Why would we be frightened by such a small force? Sanson was finally relieved after hearing her words. However, he was still a little nervous. But, Mistress, this is not the same as a few years ago. This is the Black Sword Sect's manner. Our every move is under their eyes. On the other hand, aren't their actions all right in front of us? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows and chuckled, interrupting him. Sanson was stunned. What do you mean? I don't mean anything. Let's wait until they come back from Lan Qingfeng. Chu Luiyue touched his chin. Lan Qingfeng. They've been eyeing it for a long time. Digression, I'm a little tired, so I'll take a break. 6:00 in the evening. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1856. Sanson fell into deep thought. I didn't hear them mention it before, but judging from today's situation, it should be the case. Speaking of Lan Qingfeng, Mo Yun and the rest had different expressions. It seemed that they were prepared. But I don't know what their plan is, and what they plan to do to Lan Qingfeng. Chu Luiyue recalled what she saw today and raised her eyebrows. Perhaps they already knew that the deep blue flame was being suppressed in the Azure Mountain Range. But they didn't expect the flame to be more powerful than they expected, so they were disrupted. The few people who died in Lan Qingfeng didn't have high status in Majin sect. If it weren't for the incident, they wouldn't have asked for help from Mo Lin and the rest, and they wouldn't have alerted Mo Yun. Mo Yun was obviously very concerned about Lan Qingfeng's situation, but he only sent these few people. Either he didn't predict the situation in the beginning, or he wanted to keep a low profile to avoid attracting attention. But no matter what, it was obvious that Majin sect didn't just have their eyes on Lan Qingfeng today. Sanson suddenly thought of something, and her eyes lit up. Lan Qingfeng isn't far from Qingshui Cliff. Could it be that they did this for? Chu Luiyue nodded. You got such an opportunity at Qingshui Cliff. How can it not make people jealous? Majin sect is no exception. If I'm not wrong, they must have found something at Lan Qingfeng. They planned to take it slow, but the flame exploded today, and they made a big fuss. That was why Mo Yun was so angry. Sanson nodded in agreement. Master is right. There are always people searching for treasures nearby. Many people must have seen what happened at Lan Qingfeng. In less than a day, the whole Peach Blossom Cove will be abuzz with the news. Even if Mo Yun killed them all, he couldn't completely block the news. That flame, what is it? Chu Luiyue crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes, deep in thought. There were all kinds of strange flames between heaven and earth. However, she had never seen such a dark blue flame before. Furthermore, that flame was clearly the same as the flame that existed in Sanson's body, but it was not under Sanson's control. Master. Actually, when we were fighting with that flame earlier, I felt that, it seemed to have deliberately shown mercy to me. Sanson hesitantly voiced out the doubts in her heart. Chu Luiyue nodded. Actually, she had already guessed this. With Sanson's strength, it would be very difficult for her to withstand the full power of the flame. In the end, after he set up a barrier, he was actually able to barely stop it. There was obviously something fishy going on. If Molin and the others had observed carefully, or if they had come over to check on Sanson's injuries, they would have discovered that Sanson's injuries were not as serious as theirs. In other words, this flame might be related to your small space. Chu Luiyue muttered. Sanson was bewildered. This. I'm not sure, after all, he didn't even fully understand the small space. There is indeed a force suppressed beneath the azure peak. A cold and pleasant voice sounded. Chu Luiyue turned around and was a little surprised. What did you notice? Rong Xiao nodded and pondered for a moment. Then, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his lips. It's very likely that this is what the Black Sword sect wants. On the other side, Mo Yun brought Molin and quickly headed towards the azure peak. The two of them were extremely fast. Molin's strength was not as strong as Mo Yun's. In addition, he was injured previously. At this time, he really exerted all his strength to barely keep up with Mo Yun. The aura in his body was chaotic and his face was getting paler. However, Mo Yun's aura was cold and he didn't dare to say anything. He could only grit his teeth and bear with it. The two of them arrived at the azure peak in silence. From afar, Mo Yun could see the dark blue flames that were burning fiercely on top of the mountain. More importantly, at this time, many people had already gathered around the azure peak. Their attention was focused on Lan Qingfeng at the moment. Why would a ball of fire suddenly appear on Lanqing Peak out of nowhere? Could it be that some treasure is about to appear? That's hard to say. Anyway, the flame is very powerful. Just now, someone wanted to go over but was almost burned to death. Didn't you see that everyone is gathered here but no one dares to go forward? I see. The flame seems to be gushing out from the mountain. Maybe there's something hidden under the azure peak. Even if there's something hidden, it might not be our turn. The fire is getting stronger and stronger. I wonder when someone will be able to solve it. High god experts won't do. I guess it's still a venerable god expert? Oh right, why did I hear that there were people from the Black Sword sect here before? Could this be their territory? TSK. If there's really a treasure appearing, it's only available to the fated people. The Black Sword sect is powerful, but it's impossible for them to forcefully occupy this place, right? There were different opinions. The veins on Mo Yun's forehead twitched violently. The scene that he didn't want to see the most had happened. Now that so many people had gathered here, he couldn't kill them all. He turned his head and looked at Molin with killing intent surging in his eyes. You're leaving just like that after such a big thing happened? They didn't even try to hide it. They were afraid that there weren't enough people who knew about it. A terrifying aura descended and pressed heavily on Molin's shoulder like a small mountain. He swallowed the blood that surged to his throat and said with difficulty. Deputy Sect Leader, it's not that we didn't mean it. It's just that we don't have the strength to do it. This flame. The power of this flame had exceeded the limit of what they could bear. Of course, he knew how serious the consequences would be if this matter was made public. However, the situation at that time was already out of their control. The only thing he could do was to hurry back and ask Mo Yun for instructions. However, he didn't expect these people to come faster than expected. Mo Yun closed his eyes and took a deep breath. It took him a lot of effort to suppress the surging killing intent in his heart. This place was close to Qingshui Cliff. Indeed, there were people loitering around here every day in hopes of encountering the same opportunity as Sanson. It was normal for the sudden flame on the azure peak to attract their attention. If this matter really gets out of hand, it won't be enough even if you die 10,000 times. Mo Yun lowered his voice. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Molin's heart was cold, but he could only lower his head. He knew he was done for. Mo Yun turned around and rushed toward the azure peak at an even faster speed. The most important thing now was to deal with the flame. Soon, someone in the crowd around the azure peak noticed his figure. Mo Yun is here. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1857. As soon as he said that, the noise instantly disappeared. almost everyone turned their heads to look at him. Their expressions were nervous, and their eyes were filled with different degrees of respect and fear. Mo Yun's name was well known in the entire Peach Blossom Dock. Even those who disliked the Black Sword sect would feel fear when they saw Mo Yun. After all, he was really strong. Seeing Mo Yun, many people's hearts beat like a drum. This was because although Mo Yun was usually in charge of the entire Ink Sword sect's affairs, he did not appear in public often. Now that he had suddenly come here, it was obvious why he was here. Dead silence. The atmosphere was heavy. Mo Yun walked forward with a cold face. He first took a look at the situation of Lan Qingfeng. Halfway up the mountain, a line of fire meandered. Dark blue flames surged out from under the cracked mountain rocks, leaping happily. The surrounding air temperature seemed to have risen by quite a bit. Mo Yun's heart tightened. The situation was indeed more serious than he had expected. Moreover, the flames were still spreading to the surroundings. Although the speed was not fast, if it was not suppressed, the consequences would be unimaginable. He held his breath and closed his eyes. In the next moment, a turbulent force surged out from his body. Mo Yun's aura skyrocketed. When the surrounding people saw this, they knew that he was going to make a move, and they all retreated vigilantly. At the same time, Mo Yun's action also confirmed their previous guess. The flames on Lan Qingfeng were indeed related to the Ink Sword sect. If there was really some treasure hidden below, the Ink Sword sect had probably already made up their mind to take it for themselves. This inevitably caused many people to feel dissatisfied. The Ink Sword sect is really domineering. They just came and attacked without even saying a word. From the looks of it, those who don't know would really think that this is the Ink Sword sect's territory. Sure. Lower your voice. Be careful of the trouble that comes from the mouth. What's wrong with talking about it? There are so many people here today, and we all saw it clearly. Could it be that they could stab all these pairs of eyes blind and seal all these mouths shut? What's the use of talking about it? The Peach Blossom Dock is now the Ink Sword sect's territory. However, let's see if Mo Yun can suppress the flames. In the next moment, Mo Yun abruptly drew the sword at his waist and poured vigorous origin power into it. For a moment, the sound of swords humming could be heard. It spread out in a mighty manner in this world. Chi! A beam of sword light slashed down fiercely. A long black spatial crack appeared in midair. Berserk energy surged wildly. The wind howled. The trees on Lanqing Peak were swept away by the sword chi, and a large number of them fell down. In the blink of an eye, that terrifying and sharp power slashed down on the mountain. The blue flames that were burning seemed to have sensed danger and suddenly grew in size. Boom! A ball of blazing flame fiercely collided with the sword energy. For a moment, sparks flew everywhere. The scorching hot and terrifying residual energy spread out in all directions. In an instant, the forest halfway up the mountain was enveloped by the flames. Mo Yun's heart sank. His power was actually unable to suppress this flame. The onlookers all had different expressions when they saw this. Even Mo Yun was not a match for this flame. If the flames continued to spread, it would be very dangerous. Time passed slowly. In the room, it was quiet. Chu Luiyue was resting with his eyes closed while Rong Xiao was reading a book. Both of them looked peaceful. It was as if they were in their own home. On the other hand, Sanson was restless. He kept walking around in the room with his hands clasped together and looked outside from time to time. Of course, the doors and windows of this room were tightly shut. He could not see anything inside. At most, he could hear some noises outside. However, the sky was getting dark. It had been a long time since they came in, but there was no movement outside at all. Sanson, you have been walking for so long. Aren't you tired? Why don't you sit there and rest for a while? Chu Luiyue finally opened his eyes after completing a small cycle. Sanson looked worried. Master, my feet are not tired, but my heart is. They have been gone for so long. Logically speaking, they should be back. Why is there no sound until now? Chu Luiyue looked at him speechlessly. Even if they are back, we may not be able to hear them here. Why are you in such a hurry? No, I mean, after Moyun and the others went to Lan Qingfeng, if they are back, they should have some reaction to us, right? For example, they should ask us something. He did not dare to think about letting them go directly. However, there was no reaction at all. He was really guilty and felt that something was going to happen. Do you think the problem at Lan Qingfeng has been solved? Chu Luiyue laughed. If it has been solved, but they don't want this matter to be spread, it is normal for them to lock us up for a few more days. If it hasn't been solved, they will naturally not care about us now. Sanson rubbed his face. Master's words were as good as not saying anything. It is useless for you to keep worrying here. If you have the time, you should cultivate. Chu Luiyue lifted his chin. If you are strong enough, you may be able to solve the flame today. It was fine if he did not say this. Once he said this, Sanson felt uncomfortable. He always felt that his ambition did not lie in this. It was fine as long as he was strong enough. Why should he put in so much effort to cultivate? However, today's matter was a slap to his face. He had almost failed to protect his own master, so he really should reflect on himself. Master, you are right. Sanson responded listlessly. Chu Luiyue nodded with relief. Sanson's talent was not bad. If he was willing to work hard, he would not be worse than the others in the 13U sect. She glanced outside. The sky had darkened. If they were not back yet, the people in the U residence would be worried. Just as Chu Luiyue was thinking about how to send the news back, a ripple suddenly appeared in the void. Then, a green figure walked out of it. Digression: at about 6 p.m., mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI. Net. Chapter 1858. It was Tsini. Greetings, Master. Tsini bowed. Chu Luiyue looked at him in surprise. Tsini. How did you get in? The Black Sword sect was heavily guarded. Trying to enter without being noticed was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. What Chu Luiyue feared the most was the transparent barrier that enveloped the entire Majin sect. Even she couldn't guarantee that she could enter without causing any commotion. Yet, Tsini appeared so suddenly. I used some tricks. Tsini said indifferently. After realizing that something had happened, he rushed straight to Majin sect. However, it was indeed difficult to enter Majin sect. He had always been very cautious, especially at a time like this. Hence, he tried many methods. After spending a lot of time and effort, he was finally able to enter. Sanson gave him a thumbs up in shock. Big brother. As expected of you. He had stayed in Peach Blossom Cove for so long and had entered Majin sect many times. Even he didn't dare to barge in, but Big Brother actually came in just like that. Sometimes, the gap between people was just that big. Tsini turned around and bowed to Rongxiu. Your Highness. Rongxiu's indifferent gaze landed on him. His scarlet lips curled up slightly as he looked at Chu Luiyue. Your subordinate is indeed powerful. Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She didn't know that Tsini had such ability, but now wasn't the time to ask about this. Tsini, it's too dangerous for you to come here so suddenly. No one knew how many unknown dangers there were in Majin sect. Once Tsini was discovered, Master, don't worry. I'm only here to ensure your safety and His Highness' safety. I'll immediately inform you of the situation outside. I won't stay here for long. It took him a lot of effort to get in. If he stayed for too long, he didn't dare to guarantee his safety. Chu Luiyue was relieved to see that he had his own plans. We're all fine. We're just temporarily detained here by Moyun. He won't do anything to us for the time being. However, it was a little difficult to get out. Big brother, are you talking about the situation outside? What's happening outside? Sanson quickly grasped the key point and asked anxiously. Cini paused. Lan Qingfeng's fire has been completely ignited. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell silent for a moment. Sanson was bewildered. Completely burned. Big brother, what is the meaning of this? Cin Yi explained. During the day, flames suddenly appeared on the Azure Peak, attracting the attention of many people. Someone wanted to go up and take a look to see if there was a treasure descending into the world, but in the end, he was swallowed by the flames and lost his life. After a few people died, almost no one went there anymore. Until Mo Yun personally went there. At this point, he paused slightly. However, Mo Yun was also unable to suppress this flame and was injured. After that, the fire spread. Now, almost the entire Langfang Peak was surrounded by flames. Even in the city, you can see the blue flames soaring into the sky from afar. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. The Black Sword sect didn't send any more people? Cini nodded. After Mo Yun failed, they called many people from the Black Sword sect to join forces. However, they still failed in the end and suffered heavy casualties. Now, Mo Yun is leading people to guard Lan Qingfeng Peak and hasn't done anything. If he wasn't forced, Mo Yun wouldn't have done this. From this, it could be seen how tense the situation was. Has the fire spread to the other peaks? Rong Xiao suddenly asked. Cini thought for a moment and shook his head. I'm not very sure about this, but looking at the location of the flames, it shouldn't have spread yet. Rong Xiao's eyes flashed with understanding. He didn't seem surprised. If it was a normal mountain fire, it would have spread across the sky. However, the flames on Langfang Peak were not normal flames. The situation was naturally different. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. In that case, you go back first and observe the situation. If there's any news, you can report back. They couldn't leave the Black Sword sect yet. Otherwise, it would only cause more trouble. Cini nodded. Yes. Your Highness, please take care. Cin Yi will take his leave. After saying that, his figure quickly disappeared. Hey! Big brother! Sanson hurriedly shouted, but he was already gone. Help me take care of the shop, Sanson muttered the remaining half of his sentence. After all this trouble, I won't be able to make any money for a few days. Big brother only has eyes for Master and His Highness, but not for me. It's so sad. Hey, Master, do you think many people in Peach Blossom Cove will be injured? The demand for these herbs will probably increase again. Should I raise the price? Chu Luiyue glanced at him and kindly reminded him. Yes. I think the Black Sword sect will also ask for more, right? Sanson, who had just gotten excited, became listless again after hearing this. Master, can't you let me be happy? It's already very pitiful to be reduced to such a state, okay? Chu Luiyue thought seriously. The happiest thing for you now is that the flames won't burn your small space. Although the distance between Qingshui Cliff and Langfang Peak wasn't far, judging from the previous situation, the flames that suddenly appeared were quite polite to Sanson. They probably wouldn't be so rude. The corner of Sanson's mouth twitched. He subconsciously said, that fire won't burn it, but it might not be the same for you. Digression, not today. Happy New Year, everyone. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1859. Until now, when he recalled the scene of the sky suddenly opening and the flames burning in that small space, his heart subconsciously trembled. For some reason, he felt that his master really had the ability to do so. Chu Liuyue's eyelids twitched. Alright, if you have time to think about this, you might as well cultivate. If something really happens to your small space in the future and you don't even have the ability to deal with it, you won't even have the time to feel heartache. Sanson agreed, feeling aggrieved. Xin Yi's arrival finally allowed him to calm down and cultivate. Chu Liyue walked to a chair at the side and sat down, resting her chin on her hand. Originally, she wanted to continue cultivating, but Sanson's words just now aroused her thoughts. She wasn't worried about the safety of that small space. She was just wondering if there really was some kind of connection between that small space and her black shield. Otherwise, why would something like that happen back then? Chu Liyue held her breath and focused. She lowered her eyebrows and fell into deep thought. Back then, she had accidentally found that black shield in a cave in Peach Blossom Cove. However, the location of that mountain was too remote and didn't even have a name. Later on, several battles broke out there, and the entire mountain was almost destroyed and no longer existed. I wonder if I can find any clues if I go back now. Chu Liyue thought of this and summoned the black shield again. The simple and unadorned black shield was deep and reserved. There were countless marks engraved on it, showing the countless battles and killings it had experienced. She reached out her hand and slowly brushed it over. There were shallow indentations where the rust had peeled off. If one didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to tell. Chu Liyue tried to summon the power within, but the black shield didn't react at all. It was as if the scene from before was just an illusion. But of course, it wasn't an illusion. Rongxiu's fingers were even burned. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu seemed to have sensed something and looked over. The two of them looked at each other. Chu Liyue got up and walked over. In a moment of carelessness, the black shield in her hand suddenly fell down. Chu Liyue was startled. He hastily pulled it back and held it firmly. Why does this shield seem to be heavier than before? Chu Liyue stared at the thing in his hand in bewilderment. When she summoned it just now, she placed it in front of her and held it with both hands, so it wasn't obvious. However, when she got up just now, she used her usual strength and almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. This was not an illusion. This thing. Ever since the incident in the small space, it had really become heavier. Strange, Chu Liyue frowned slightly. Ever since she had obtained this black shield, she had been using it with ease. She had never felt this way before. After all, at that time, her strength couldn't be compared to now. Her physical strength was definitely at the top of the high gods list. If even she felt that it was too heavy, what happened? Rongxiu saw the situation and got up to walk over. Chu Liyue pondered for a moment and shook her head. It's nothing. I just feel that this thing seems a little different. As she spoke, she put away the black shield and held Rongxiu's hand again. The red burn mark on his slender and fair fingers had already disappeared. Rongxiu's lips curved slightly. I told you, don't worry about that small injury. Chu Liyue still had some doubts in her heart. She looked up and stared into Rongxiu's eyes. You're now a high god. Logically speaking, it's impossible for you to be injured so easily. That light back then, what was? At this point, she suddenly paused. Because even she didn't know the answer to that. Rongxiu's deep almond-shaped eyes flickered slightly. There seemed to be waves rolling in them, but they disappeared in an instant. If you still have doubts, let's go back to that small space after we get out of here and see what's going on. What do you think? Chu Luyue nodded slightly. Perhaps, this was the best solution at the moment. That night, many people in Peach Blossom Dock couldn't sleep. Because Lan Qingfeng's fire was still burning. The originally steep and tall mountain peak was now in a mess. Large patches of dense forest had collapsed. Scorch marks could be seen everywhere. When dawn came again, seeing that the fire didn't seem to have any intention of stopping, many people started to panic. This fire, the more it burned, the more intense it became. When exactly would it stop burning? Vice Sect Master, the group that just went over, a soldier came to report, his face full of despair. Mo Yun stared at Lan Qingfeng, his fists clenched tightly. His face was pale. Including this group, the 3 groups sent by the Black Sword sect had been completely annihilated. Most importantly, many of them were the mainstays of Ink Sword sect. This time, they had suffered a great loss. As for Mo Yun, his situation wasn't any better. He was in a sorry state. His left shoulder was stained with blood, and a corner of his shirt was burned. This was the injury he got when he tried to suppress the fire. Vice Sect Master, I'm afraid we can't send any more people. If this goes on, we won't be able to return. It's meaningless to us. Mo Lin finally bit the bullet and tried to dissuade him. He knew that the Vice Sect leader wanted to resolve this matter quickly, but the key point was that the current situation had far exceeded their expectations. If they blindly sent more people over, it would only cause more of their men to die. What good would that do? Therefore, even though he knew that this would make Mo Yun unhappy, Mo Lin still said it. The person who came to report quickly agreed. That's right. Vice Sect Master, it's not that we're afraid and don't dare to go forward, but this matter. We can't do it by force. Why don't we find another way? Mo Yun's eyes swept over coldly. Another way. Does this mean that you have another brilliant idea? That person's face turned pale. No. I don't mean to offend you. I just think. His voice gradually became softer. This was because he really didn't know what to do. Mo Yun took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. In fact, how could he not know what they were talking about? However, Lan Qingfeng was too important. When he saw the fire in the sky, he was so angry that he couldn't calm down. Waves of pain came from his body, reminding Mo Yun that he couldn't take it head-on. Pass down the order. Everyone, retreat immediately. Mo Yun's voice was cold. The only thing they could do now was to wait and see what would happen. Mo Lin finally heaved a sigh of relief. Yes. The person who came to report quickly left. Mo Lin looked at Mo Yun hesitantly. Vice Sect Master, why don't we report this matter to the Sect Master? Mo Yun instantly turned his head. His eyes were cold and stern. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1860. Mo Lin's heart trembled, and his entire body froze. He could not say the rest of his words no matter what. He immediately knelt down without thinking. I know my mistake. Vice Sect Master, please spare my life. Beads of cold sweat appeared on his forehead and back. A gentle breeze blew over, almost making him fall into an ice cave. In that moment, he was sure that he saw a deep killing intent in Mo Yun's eyes. He would really do it. Mo Yun just stared at him. The surrounding air had clearly been scorched by the flames, but at this moment, Mo Lin felt that everything around him was frozen. It was cold to the bone. Mo Lin, you have been by my side for quite some time. Now, the more you live, the more you go back. Mo Yun opened his mouth, and there was no warmth in his voice. Mo Lin trembled like a sieve. Vice sect master. He just said it casually. He really did not mean anything else. Yes, he had been by Mo Yun's side for so long, how could he say such words? He knew that Mo Yun was usually careful with his words and actions, but he did not want any bad news to reach the sect master's ears. Now that such a big thing had happened, Mo Yun would definitely use all means to solve all the problems before the sect master knew about it. He even took the initiative to ask Mo Yun to report this matter. Wasn't this giving Mo Yun trouble? But at this moment, Mo Yun obviously did not want to listen to his explanation. He raised his palm, indicating that Mo Lin did not need to say any more. He was already annoyed enough now, and did not want to waste time and energy on such things. Mo Lin's heart was completely cold. Mo Yun's reaction had already shown his attitude. This time, he was afraid that Mo Lin's emotions were in turmoil, and he was filled with regret. If he had resolved the matter at the beginning, how would he have fallen into such a situation? It was all because of that Sansan. She was too incompetent. At this moment, Mo Lin wished that he could push all the blame to someone else. It was a pity that Mo Yun was no longer willing to hear another word from him. Residents. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu did not return for the entire night, and the people in the residence did not have a good rest either. Early in the morning, 13 came to the front yard and looked in the direction of the door from time to time. Yujio walked over with her sword in hand. 13, what are you doing here so early in the morning? 13 turned around. I want to wait for Master and the others to return. Yujio twirled her sword and said, didn't Big Brother say last night that Master and the others are safe and sound and will be back soon? How long are you going to wait here? 13 felt a little embarrassed. I know, but I just feel worried, so I want to wait and see. Ninth brother, why are you here? Didn't he always practice swordsmanship in the backyard? Yujio looked indifferent. The backyard is a little small, so I can't use it fully. I'll give it a try. 13 was speechless. Obviously, the backyard was several times bigger than this place. If you want to wait for the master, just say it directly. Why do you have to find such a lame excuse? Right at this time, Wu Yao also came. When he saw 13 and Yujio, he was stunned. 13 asked faintly. Fifth brother, are you here to train? Cough. A hint of embarrassment flashed across Wu Yao's face. Yeah. Wasn't that because the backyard was too small? I wanted to leave it for Yujio. This brat actually ran faster than him. Yujio proudly weighed the wooden sword in her hand. Sometimes, the first to strike was the best. Hey! You're all here. Shifang's surprised voice sounded. He was also carrying a wooden bucket in his hand and a hoe on his shoulder. 13's eyelids twitched. 10th brother, why are you here with these things? Shifang had already prepared an excuse. I saw that the front yard was a little empty, so I wanted to plant some vegetables. Wu Yao was speechless. Yujio was speechless. 13 was speechless. Who would plant vegetables in the front yard? However, Shifang turned a deaf ear to the gazes of the three people. He really walked to a tree at the side and began to hoe the ground. He looked very leisurely. Wu Yao narrowed his eyes. Impressive. Yujio gave him a thumbs up. Impressive. 13 was speechless. What was he learning from them every day? Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. All of them stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Immediately after, a gorgeous swaying figure walked into their sight. Both sides looked at each other for a moment. Little Hachi hurriedly took a few steps back and looked at them in horror. What what are you doing here? It's very scary to see a bunch of demons dancing around so early in the morning. However, they stared at her with scrutinizing eyes. Wu Yao asked. Little Hachi, why did you come back from outside? Little Hachi patted her chest lightly. Of course it's because I was worried about Master, so I went out to see her. Their expressions changed at the same time. They were still waiting here for Master to come back. Little Hachi had already gone to see her. Didn't Big Brother tell us to wait here in peace yesterday? Wu Yao frowned. Little Hachi walked lightly with an enchanting smile. Fifth brother, of course I'm different from you. Big Brother said those words to you guys, but not to me. Although Tsin Yi was usually rather strict with her, compared to the others, he was much more lenient. Also, Big Brother knows that I went out last night. Don't you think so, Big Brother? As he spoke, Lil 8 waved his hand behind the group. They turned around, and only then did they see that Tsin Yi had actually been standing there since an unknown time. When he heard Little Hachi's words, he nodded lightly in agreement. Shi Fong asked curiously. Sister 8, did Big Brother ask you to go out for a mission? Little Hachi blinked and smiled lightly. I'm just going to find out some information. That Black Sword sect is indeed like an iron bastion, but the people in charge of guarding it are all men. Men are all the same. Big Brother, I'm not talking about you. As she spoke, she directly ignored the remaining men and walked inside while lazily saying, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. This night has really tired me out, aw. Before she could finish speaking, she saw a tall and muscular figure from the corner of her eye and almost bumped into him. She hurriedly stood still in shock. Little Mina heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that it was that familiar icy face. He glared at Little Mina, still in shock. Lord Yenqing, what's wrong with you? Is there any meaning in eavesdropping on others? Yenqing said indifferently. I've already been here for more than 15 minutes. I came a little earlier than everyone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Little Hachi couldn't be bothered with him. She stretched and narrowed her eyes. All right. It's been hard on me today, so I won't bicker with you. It's very tiring to deal with those men. Yenqing's expression became very subtle. His thin lips moved, as if he wanted to say something but stopped. From the corner of his eye, he saw that she revealed a slender and exquisite waist. It was dazzlingly white. He immediately looked away. A fragrant breeze drifted past. He hesitated for a moment, then turned around and grabbed her wrist. Miss Little Hachi. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1861. It was warm and slippery to the touch. Her wrist was very thin, as if it could be easily broken with a slight movement. It was also like the best mutton fat jade, warm and delicate, extremely precious, and could be broken with a little carelessness. Little Hachi turned back in surprise. Because of the shock, she even forgot to shake his hand off. Yenqing was suddenly awakened by her eyes and immediately let go of her hand. His movements were a little hurried, and he accidentally touched the colored string on her wrist, making a crisp sound. Lord Yenqing. Little Hachi came back to her senses and felt a little interested. This Lord Yenqing had always been as cold as ice to her, and even avoided her like the plague. He took the initiative to talk to her, and even reached out to hold her hand, but this was the first time. Little Hachi's beautiful eyes glittered, and she looked at Yenqing unscrupulously. Lord Yenqing, do you have something to say? Yenqing paused for a moment, and then gently nodded. Miss Little Hachi, would it be convenient for me to talk to you in private? Little Hachi didn't sleep much this night. Now what she wanted most was to go back to her bed immediately and have a good sleep. Didn't he see that she didn't even pay attention to her eldest brother? According to her usual temperament, no matter how big the matter was, it would wait until she had a good rest. However, Yenqing's unusual attitude made her very curious. So she decided to hold on for a while and see what Yenqing wanted to say to her. She walked to the side for a distance, then stopped and turned to look at Yenqing. "Now, Lord Yenqing, can you say it?" Yenqing followed, but this time he didn't come closer. Like before, he still kept a distance of 3 steps. Facing little Hachi's smiling and curious eyes, he slightly lowered his eyes. After a moment, he seemed to have made up his mind and said, "Miss Little Hachi, yesterday, His Highness went out with the princess." Little Hachi nodded. She knew. Didn't everyone know about this? His Highness is powerful and extremely protective of the princess. No matter what the situation was, he would never let the princess consort be in danger. So, even if they haven't returned yet, you can rest assured. Little Eight's beautiful eyebrows furrowed. They didn't say anything bad about that person, did they? Why did Yenqing suddenly run over and say these things? Madam Yenqing, my time is very precious. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Little Hachi yawned again. She was really sleepy. Yenqing looked up. The girl in front of him was flamboyant and enchanting, like a flower that was always in full bloom. She was dangerous, yet fragile. He paused for a moment, then said sincerely, "With His Highness's strength, he will definitely be able to protect the princess consort. So please don't worry too much. Also, there's really no need for Miss Little Hachi to pay such a price." Little Hachi was stunned when she heard this. Sensing that her expression was a little off, Yenqing swallowed the rest of his words and blamed himself in his heart. She was a young lady after all. It was indeed very embarrassing for someone to say such things to her face, but he had no choice. "What did you just say?" Little Hachi gritted her teeth, and every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between her teeth. Yenqing cupped his fists and bowed. "If I have offended you, please," Little Hachi was so angry that her entire body trembled. You. Was there something wrong with this Yenqing's brain? What did he mean by that? She had plenty of methods to gather information, so why did she have to do what he thought? Seeing Little Hachi so angry, Yenqing was stunned for a moment before he finally realized that he might have been wrong. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. Little Hachi's words just now were too ambiguous. Sun Yi and the others were used to hearing this, so they didn't think much of it. However, Yenqing didn't know anything about this, so it was inevitable that he would misunderstand. Yenqing instantly realized how rude his words were to Little Hachi. He finally felt a rare sense of embarrassment. His handsome face was filled with awkwardness and helplessness. His ears were also slightly red. This was really a big misunderstanding. Yenqing hurriedly explained. "Miss Little Hachi, I'm really sorry for the offense." "I'm just worried," Little Hachi sneered. "Worried about what? Could it be that you're worried that I'll be at a disadvantage?" Yenqing choked at the question. This kind of misunderstanding was very overboard for any lady. No matter how angry the other party was, it was only right. Little Hachi widened her eyes, and it was as if there was a ball of fire burning in her chest. His original drowsiness had completely disappeared. She just wanted to cut open this head and see what was inside. "Yenqing. I don't mind telling you, when I came out, you weren't even there yet." "You?" "Yes." Yenqing suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a word. Little Hachi instantly stopped and frowned. "Yes." "What was it?" "Black sword sect is dangerous." Yenqing is indeed worried that Miss Little Hachi will be at a disadvantage. Yenqing took a deep breath, and his eyes were clear as he explained word by word. Little Hachi looked at him in a daze, and her throat suddenly felt a little tight. The rest of her words were stuck in her throat, unable to go up or down. The 13 U guards were all capable. She was no exception. Everyone had been together for many years, and they were all very clear about each other's backgrounds. In the eyes of Tsunyi and the others, it was already good enough if all the men in the world didn't get tortured to death when they met little Hachi. They basically didn't worry about her. Therefore, this was the first time she heard such words. Now that he knows that Miss Little Hachi is safe and sound, Enchanting can be at ease. If something really happened, he definitely wouldn't be able to explain it to His Highness. Luckily, it was a false alarm. Enchanting apologized solemnly again. I hope that Miss Little Hachi will be magnanimous enough to forgive the misunderstanding from before. Little Mina took a step back and threw out a sentence in a fluster. What do I have to worry about? With that, she turned and left hurriedly. Digression, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1862. Enchanting looked up and only had time to see that gorgeous color fluttering like a butterfly and quickly disappearing from the courtyard. Did he scare her away? Enchanting frowned and blamed himself in his heart. No matter what, it was not good to misunderstand a young lady like this. It seemed that he could only find a chance to apologize to her in the future. Little Hachi hurried back to her room. She fell head first onto her soft bed and prepared to catch up on sleep. But the moment she closed her eyes, the scene just now kept replaying in her mind. Yes. Enchanting was indeed worried that little Hachi would be at a disadvantage. Enchanting had always been a man of few words. Usually, she deliberately provoked him time and time again, but she rarely got a response from him. Most of the time, he would respond with silence or a few short words to dismiss her. Today was the most he had ever spoken to her. And it didn't sound like anything good. Little Hachi pulled up the blanket in frustration and covered her head. It was dark all around. It was so quiet that she could only hear her own breathing. But for some reason, she recalled that rare embarrassed expression on that iceberg-like face, as well as that pair of eyes that were usually calm and indifferent but especially sincere today. So annoying. Little Hachi suddenly threw the blanket away and sat up. This Enchanting actually misunderstood her. Creak, the door was pushed open. Little Hachi jumped in fright and hurriedly looked over. When she saw that it was Tsunyi, she relaxed and said angrily, "Big brother. Why didn't you knock before coming in? You scared me to death." Tsunyi knocked on the door. "Your door isn't locked." Little Hachi took a look and realized that she had indeed only locked the door slightly because she had been in too much of a hurry when she came in. "But I need to sleep. I didn't sleep the whole night." Tsunyi walked over and raised his eyebrows slightly. "I thought you couldn't sleep now, so I came over." Little Hachi's anger was stuck in her chest. In front of her brother, she really couldn't say anything that went against her heart. At this moment, she was indeed not sleepy at all. She leaned weakly against the headboard. "But I said I wanted to catch up on my sleep." Tsunyi knocked on the table. "It won't be too late to sleep after you're done." Originally, he didn't expect to be in such a hurry. However, looking at little Hachi's condition, he knew that she wouldn't be able to sleep for a while. He might as well come over early and settle the matter. Little Hachi looked at him sadly. "Big brother, you really don't give up on every opportunity to squeeze me dry." Tsunyi leaned back in his chair. His expression was indifferent as the corners of his lips curled up. "That's right. It's not as good as Enchanting. Big brother." Little Hachi jumped up from the bed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "You heard everything." At that time, they had already walked to the side. No. That wasn't the point. More importantly, what nonsense was Big Brother talking about? No, I really didn't hear what you said. Sun-yi was calm and composed. 13 and the rest didn't hear it either. Little Hachi stared at him warily. It was Yen Qing who came over to apologize to me. Little Hachi's lips twitched violently. Then, she fell back onto the bed in despair. I knew it, Sun-yi sized her up. In his impression, little Hachi had always been beautiful and enchanting. He had never seen her like this before. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Tell me about yesterday's situation. Sun-yi returned to the topic at hand. It took little Mina quite a while to accept the information contained in those few words. It seemed that some people were really born dumb. There was no saving them, no saving them. She sat up with difficulty. She didn't feel good at all. After sitting quietly for a while, she finally pulled herself together. Big Brother, after you came back yesterday, I went to Black Sword Sect. Of course, she didn't go to the main entrance. Instead, she went to the side door. The side door's security was relatively lax, so it was easier to break in. In the beginning, the two guards were still very cautious when they saw her. However, little Hachi was simply too beautiful. She also had an extremely flirtatious air about her. She only had to show a pitiful and aggrieved expression to make them let down their guard. In fact, it wasn't the first time they had seen such a scene. Black Sword Sect was currently at the peak of Peach Blossom Cove. Although there were many who disliked or even hated them, there were even more who wanted to enter and become a member of Black Sword Sect. Even if they couldn't get in, it would be good if they could form a relationship with someone from Black Sword Sect. Therefore, although these guards didn't have a high status in Black Sword Sect, in the eyes of many people, they were already existences that they yearned to climb up to. Many people used all sorts of methods just to win the favor of these people. Among them, there was no lack of talented but rather beautiful women who took the initiative to approach them. When they saw little Hachi, they naturally thought that she was the same and didn't keep their guard up. Of course, the result was obvious. Little Hachi curled her finger slightly and used some drugs to mesmerize those men so much that they would say anything. Since yesterday, Black Sword Sect has sent many people to Blue-Green Peak. However, none of them returned. They all died. Later on, Mo Yun seemed to realize that this wasn't good and stopped sending people. However, he didn't return either and continued to stand guard near Blue-Green Peak. Little Hachi rested her chin on one hand. After encountering such a big incident, the entire Black Sword Sect is now in a state of panic. Almost no one cares about Master and the others. Although she didn't enter, she had heard quite a bit about the situation. After all, this was the first time in such a long time that Black Sword Sect allowed Sanson to bring people in and put them under house arrest in their mansion. In addition, the situation was chaotic. News circulated very quickly in private and easily found out. I feel that Master and the others won't be in any danger, at least in the short term. Little Hachi said with certainty. Sun-yi nodded. This was more or less what he had expected. The only thing he didn't expect was that Blue-Green Peak's fire was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. It had troubled Mo Yun for so long. That's good. Black Sword Sect can't even take care of itself now. Master and the others staying in Black Sword Sect will save us a lot of trouble. Sun-yi muttered to himself. Blue-Green Peak's fire will probably give Mo Yun a headache this time, Little Hachi asked curiously. Right, speaking of this, does Big Brother know what's going on with the fire? I heard that many people in Peach Blossom Cove went there. Why don't we? Sun-yi shook his head. There are enough people here. We'll just wait and see. After all, the fire was very similar to the fire in Sanson's body. Sanson and the others had been kept in Black Sword's sect because of this. The more it was like this, the more they had to distance themselves from Blue-Green Peak. Little Hachi was a little disappointed. However, after thinking about it, she felt that what Sun-Yi said made sense. All right. Sun-Yi stood up. All right, have a good rest. Don't worry about the rest. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1863. After talking about this, little Hachi finally felt sleepy again. She waved her hand lazily. Take care, big brother. I won't send you off. By the way, please close the door for me. As she said this, she closed her eyes and prepared to rest. Sun-Yi responded and walked out of the door. There was one good thing about little Hachi, she had a big heart. She seemed to never have anything on her mind, and she didn't know what worry was. Every time something happened, Wu Yao and the rest would inevitably feel anxious, but she didn't. After doing what she had to do, she would always fall asleep as quickly as possible. When she woke up again, she was full of energy. This was a rare, free and easy feeling. She was like a butterfly that never knew fatigue. She was always light, always free, and always fluttering. This was good too. Sun-Yi thought. He walked to the door and suddenly stopped. Yan-Qing, little Hachi covered her ears in annoyance and turned around. She didn't want to listen. Sun-Yi smiled. Yan-Qing didn't do it on purpose. Besides, he apologized sincerely. You don't have to keep harping on it. After all, you've caused trouble for him many times before, but he didn't do anything to you. What can he do to me? Hearing this, little Hachi was unhappy. She immediately sat up and glared at Sun-Yi angrily. Because of her anger, her beautiful eyes shone even more brightly. Sun-Yi reminded her. His strength is above yours. Even compared to me, I'm afraid he's not inferior. Little Hachi was stunned. She actually didn't know how strong Big Brother was. But she knew that if Big Brother made a move, he would definitely be able to finish her in 3 moves. Now, Big Brother actually said that Yan-Qing's strength was not much weaker than his. How is that possible? Little Hachi frowned, feeling very doubtful. It wasn't that she hadn't interacted with Yan-Qing before. His realm and strength didn't seem to be as powerful as Big Brother said. How can someone who can follow Rongshou be a simple person? Sun-Yi raised his brows slightly. Little Hachi's mind was racing. There was no need for Big Brother to lie to her about this. Could it be, was that Yan-Qing really that powerful? If he doesn't want to argue with you, just let him go. Little Hachi gritted her teeth and didn't say anything. Are we really going to let this matter go? She could not do it. He owes me in the first place. Sun-Yi didn't seem to be surprised by her answer. The corners of his lips lifted slightly, but he didn't say anything and walked out. He even closed the door behind him. Little Hachi glared at the door angrily. After a while, she lifted the quilt and fell asleep. When I have the chance, I'll definitely get my revenge. Sun-Yi left little Hachi's room and walked forward. After walking out of the courtyard, he walked around the porch and saw a person waiting for him. It was Yan-Qing. Brother Xian, he bowed politely. Sun-Yi shook her head. I've already said what I need to say, but little Hachi has always been willful. Yan-Qing's heart tightened. He originally thought that if Sun-Yi interceded, the situation would be better. But from the looks of it now, it was still a little difficult. It's all Yan-Qing's fault. It's normal for little Hachi to be angry. Thank you, Brother Xian. I'll personally apologize to little Hachi in the future. Sun-Yi nodded. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Yan-Qing didn't stay for long. Since His Highness was trapped in Black Sword sect, he indeed had other matters to attend to. Sun Yi smiled. Please. Yan Qing turned and left. His figure quickly disappeared. Sun Yi looked in the direction he left in and turned around. With that person around, he indeed didn't have to worry too much about his master's safety. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu, who were trapped in Black Sword sect, spent these 3 days peacefully. Under her watch, Sansan spent most of her time and energy on cultivation. It was much quieter. On the evening of the 4th day, a series of hurried footsteps finally sounded outside. Chu Luiyue was playing chess with Rong Xiu. When they heard the commotion, they both looked up and exchanged glances. Rong Xiu waved his sleeves. The chessboard and chess pieces instantly disappeared. Sansan was also abruptly awakened. She opened her eyes with a dazed expression. What's going on? Chu Luiyue had already stood up. Just in case, she and Rong Xiu were still disguised as followers for the past few days. It's probably trouble. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes slightly, the corners of her lips curling up. Sansan's heart sank. The flesh on her cheeks trembled violently. Master! Is this a good thing? How can you still smile? But Sansan did not have time to say this. Because he could also hear that there were people quickly approaching from outside. He immediately stood up, tidied up his appearance, and pinched his waist with heartache. These 3 days, he could not eat or sleep well, and had to cultivate hard. He had lost a lot of weight. Where are they? Mo Yun's cold voice came from outside. The guard in charge of guarding hurriedly said, reporting to deputy sect leader. They are all inside. Open the door. Mo Yun ordered. Yes. The few guards saw that the situation was not right. They did not have time to ask more. Hearing this, they hurriedly went forward to open the door. But before they could rush over, the door was already open from the inside. Sansan's round face appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Deputy sect leader. You're finally here. Sansan's face was filled with joy, as if he had seen his family. But soon after, his expression abruptly changed. Are you injured? Mo Yun's eyes were fixed on him, ignoring his words. The atmosphere was cold. The uneasy feeling in Sansan's heart grew stronger. Mo Yun slightly raised his chin. Boss Sansan, I can't let you go this time. Digression, tomorrow at noon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1864. In fact, when Sansan saw Mo Yun coming over, he knew that he would not be able to leave this time. But when he heard this, he still pretended to be surprised. Why is that? Deputy sect leader, didn't we agree that you would let us go after you solved the problem at Lan Qingfeng? Mo Yun's expression was cold. It was up to him to decide whether he would let them go or not. Originally, he left these people here because he was worried that they would spread the news about what happened at Lan Qingfeng. In the end, when he arrived, he realized that his worries were unnecessary. Because the development of the situation had exceeded their expectations. Now, a few days had passed, and the entire Peach Blossom Dock already knew about the fire at Lan Qingfeng. There was no point in covering it up anymore. When he realized this, he did think of ordering them to go back. But before he could do so, another incident happened. It was also that incident that made him return here to look for them personally. Boss Sansan, just follow me first. When we reach Lan Qingfeng, you will understand. Sansan was shocked. Go to Lan Qingfeng. Weren't Mo Yun and the rest very afraid of this before? How come now? Seeing that Mo Yun had turned around and left, Sansan did not dare to delay. He glanced at Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao behind him and quickly followed. At this time, Mo Yun did not seem to care about Sanson bringing along these two followers. His face was solemn and his aura was cold. A strong smell of blood spread out from his body, which was even more chilling. Sanson knew that the situation was not good, so he did not dare to ask more. He just followed obediently and did not say a word, for fear that he would say something that would anger this person. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao were at the back and had minimized their presence. As he walked, Chu Luiyue secretly thought to himself. So, it seemed that Mo Yun had come back specifically to look for Sanson. What exactly had happened that made him make a trip here personally? The entire journey was silent and the atmosphere was stifling. When they were still some distance away from Lan Qingfeng, Chu Luiyue saw the flames from afar. It was the blue flame burning on Lanqing Peak. She frowned slightly. Only a few days had passed, but the fire on the Azure Peak was not under control at all. Instead, it was getting worse. It was already burning to such a terrifying degree. It was evening, and the sky was turning dark. The light of the fire shone on the accumulated clouds, giving off a strange light. He could vaguely see that there were many people around Lan Qingfeng. Some of them were from the Black Sword sect, but most of them had come from all over the Peach Blossom Cove. Since such a big thing had happened, everyone who could come would naturally come. The group moved forward. When they finally arrived in front of Lan Qingfeng and saw everything clearly, Chu Luiyue suddenly understood why Mo Yun specially invited Sanson over. At this moment, the trees and rocks on Lanqing Peak had collapsed. It was a complete mess. More importantly, the blue flame had formed a circle halfway up the mountain, completely surrounding Lan Qingfeng. Standing there and looking over, everyone was able to clearly see that there was a crack in the mountain that was extending all the way to the mountain. The flame was gushing out from it. At first glance, it looked like a blue river that flowed from the middle of the mountain. But that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that when the flame was burning, a translucent barrier was gradually forming above it, covering the huge Lan Qingfeng. It was almost exactly the same as Sanson's small space. However, judging from the current situation, half of the mountain was within the barrier. Moreover, it was a hemispherical flame that was burning on the mountain. From the outside, it looked strange and dazzling. Sanson was stunned when she saw this. How did this happen? When they were here, wasn't it just a burning line of fire? It had only been a few days, and it had become like this. Mo Yun raised his finger and pointed forward. Boss Sanson, I'll have to trouble you to go again and find out what happened. It was not a discussion, nor was it an inquiry. This was an order that could not be disobeyed. Sanson's mouth twitched. He knew that nothing good would come out of calling him over. He knew very well why Mo Yun called him over. Wasn't it because he was the owner of that small space? Seeing that the flame above Lan Qingfeng was gradually burning to the size of that small space, who else had the most confidence to go over and find out what was going on besides him? Many people in the surroundings looked over. Surprise, suspicion, excitement. Obviously, they also wanted to see if the famous boss Sanson could handle the situation in front of them. Sanson wanted to cry but had no tears. He knew that he had no choice and no reason to refuse. He could only accept it. Then, since you said so, I'll go and take a look. Sanson took a deep breath and clasped his hands together nervously. Mo Yun was very satisfied with his tactfulness. Boss Sanson, you don't have to be troubled. Once you sense danger, retreat immediately. Sanson could not die yet. Mojin sect still needed him to provide those herbs and pills. Sanson nodded. Of course, he knew this. He was the master's little treasury now. No matter what, he could not lose it in this place. After mentally preparing himself, he finally lifted his foot. Boss, we'll go with you. Chu Luiyue suddenly spoke. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1865. Sanson turned around in surprise. Just as he was about to refuse, he suddenly recalled the scene in the small space. With just a thought, Master triggered a huge energy whirlpool and even set the boundary ablaze. Perhaps Master had an even more powerful trump card. In addition, it was said that the Holy Sun was also extremely powerful. If the two of them could be together, it would indeed be much safer. Perhaps they could find out more. Sanson looked at Mo Yun inquiringly. Vice sect leader, what do you think? Mo Yun said casually. Up to you. They were just two followers. It did not matter if they followed him or not. If Boss Sanson felt that this would give him a sense of security, he did not mind letting him bring them along. After all, the key lay with him. After a few days of torture, Mo Yun's mentality had undergone a huge change. He just wanted to figure out what was going on as soon as possible. What method did he use to completely solve this problem? As for the rest, he did not care. Sanson was instantly overjoyed. However, he did not show it on his face. He only coughed and said to Chu Luiyue and Mo Yun. Then let's go. You must follow me closely later. If there's anything wrong, retreat immediately. After saying that, he moved and took the lead to fly forward. Chu Luiyue and Mo Yun followed closely behind. Countless gazes fell on them. There was no doubt that they were the focus of everyone's attention. It seems that there are many people who are curious about Lan Qingfeng. Chu Luiyue said softly. Rong Xiu chuckled. It's a natural phenomenon. It's very likely that it's the arrival of a treasure. Naturally, they are very interested. In this world, who did not want to become stronger? Who did not want to obtain a huge opportunity? Who did not want to soar to the sky? Smelling the thick smell of blood in the air, Chu Luiyue raised the corner of his lips slightly. However, there was no smile in his eyes. It seems that too many people have died before. That's why they are so restrained. If they did not know how dangerous Lan Qingfeng was, they would have rushed up like a swarm of bees. Why would they call Sanson over? It was only when there was a need for someone to risk their life, and this person could only be Sanson, that Mo Yun thought of Sanson and brought him over. Thinking about it this way, Sanson's days here were indeed tough. The people of the Black Sword sect had only used him from the beginning to the end. When did they ever really put Sanson in their eyes? Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue's eyes turned cold. Soon, the three of them arrived at the halfway point of the mountain and stood less than 10 steps away from the burning flames. Sanson was the first to stop. Standing there, he could already feel the blazing temperature, as well as the astonishing power and pressure contained within the flames. Sanson turned around to look at the two of them with shock in his eyes. Why do I feel that the might of this flame seems to be much stronger than a few days ago? Chu Luiyue gently nodded. It's not an illusion. That's the truth. She noticed it too. Furthermore, this increase in power did not seem to be purely due to the spread of the fire. Sanson swallowed hard and looked at the flames in front of her again, as well as the translucent barrier that had formed at some point in time. Actually, he was very familiar with the aura on it. Because it was almost exactly the same as the one on his small space. Thinking about it, it made sense. It was the same flame to begin with, so the barrier formed by its power should naturally be the same as well. Sanson was extremely nervous at this moment. He took a few more steps forward. The closer he got, the more he felt that his entire body was about to burn up. He stretched out his hand, and a cluster of flames surged out from his palm. The appearance of this flame slightly reduced the burning sensation of the flames in front of him. Sanson gritted his teeth and slowly stretched his hand forward. At this moment, he was worried that he could not enter, but he was also worried that he could enter. If he could not enter, what if he was injured by the flames again? If he could enter, then it would be even more troublesome. In front of so many people, under the gaze of so many pairs of eyes, if he successfully entered this barrier, what would these people think? His heart was filled with apprehension as the flame in his palm finally made contact with the translucent barrier. Whoosh! Sparks flew everywhere. The power of both sides collided fiercely. A powerful force swept over, and Sanson bore the brunt of it. His body instantly flew out uncontrollably. A few low exclamations came from the crowd. Hiss! Looks like Boss Sanson can't do it either. It can't be, right? That flame is clearly the same. How can Boss Sanson not be able to handle it? The flames look the same, but who knows what's going on inside? I heard that Boss Sanson came here with Mo Lin and the others a few days ago, but they could not solve the problem of the flame at that time. After that, he was brought to Black Sword Sect. If this barrier did not appear out of nowhere today, I'm afraid the people of Black Sword Sect would not have let him come here again. I was wondering why I haven't seen him for the past few days. So this is what happened. If even he can't do it, then the rest of us will have no chance at all, right? That might not be the case. Looking at Lan Qingfeng's current situation, there's an 80% chance that some treasure is about to appear. Otherwise, why would the people of Black Sword Sect waste so much time and energy on this? Things like fortuitous encounters were hard to predict. Maybe. Between you and me, one of us will get lucky. Ha, this opportunity is given to you. Do you really dare to take it? It's been so long. Can't you see that the people of Black Sword Sect are determined to get the treasure under Lan Qingfeng? If you want it, you need to be alive. His words caused many people's expressions to change slightly, and they all fell silent. How could they not understand this logic? Black Sword Sect was almost omnipotent in Peach Blossom Cove. Wanting to snatch something from them would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Sanson barely managed to stabilize his body, and his face paled a little. However, he felt much more relaxed in his heart. This is good. After being rejected in front of everyone, even Mo Yun would not be able to force him to try to enter the barrier. Wouldn't this matter end just like that? He rolled his eyes, and an idea came to his mind. I still have to try. I have to put on a show to the end. As long as I can make those people believe that I've tried my best and still can't enter, I can successfully escape. When he thought of this, Sanson held his breath and concentrated again. He mobilized all the energy in his body, and with an even stronger force, he stretched his hand forward. This time, the flame in his palm burned even more fiercely. Boom! The two flames collided. Sanson was overjoyed. It worked. However, just as he turned his toes and was about to take advantage of the situation to retreat, he was shocked to see that the flame that gushed out from the mountain rock suddenly spread toward him, and tightly bound his wrist. Then, it pulled hard. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1866. A sudden change occurred. All of this happened too suddenly, and Sanson was not prepared. By the time he reacted, the flame had already turned into a long whip, tightly wrapping around his wrist. Immediately after, a strong force pulled him towards the barrier. He didn't even have time to exclaim before his entire body was quickly dragged into the translucent barrier. Chu Liu's pupils constricted, and without thinking, he immediately stepped forward. Almost at the same time, Rong Xiao also followed. Just at this moment, two more flames swept over. The flames wrapped around the two's bodies tightly, and then dragged them into it. The two's figures quickly disappeared. A few ripples appeared on the barrier, and then it quickly returned to calmness. As if nothing had happened. All of the onlookers were stunned on the spot. Just now. What happened? Those three people were actually all forcibly dragged into the boundary by that strange flame. Mo Yun's brows immediately furrowed. He moved his feet and was about to step forward. The people next to him hurriedly dissuaded him. Deputy Sect Leader, please reconsider. That flame and the barrier are both extremely dangerous, you must not rashly go forward. It wasn't that similar things hadn't happened before. Some people tried to enter the barrier, but they were wrapped in the flame and burned to death on the spot. This was also why there were so many people watching here, but no one casually stepped forward. The bloody lesson in front was right in front of everyone's eyes. The only difference was that those people were burned to death by the flame outside the barrier, while Sanson and the others were drawn into the barrier and disappeared. Mo Yun's footsteps paused, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. He intuitively felt that something was wrong, but he wasn't 100% sure in his heart, so he was a little hesitant. Deputy Sect Leader, Boss Sanson is the owner of that small space no matter what. Since these flames are of the same origin, maybe, he has another way to save his life inside. The people below saw that he seemed to be a little shaken, and hurriedly persuaded him again. Mo Yun thought for a moment, then raised his eyes and looked forward again. This time, he realized that something was wrong. The barrier was clearly translucent before, but after Sanson and the others were dragged in, they couldn't see their figures at all. Even the scenery inside had completely disappeared. One had to know that they could see Lan Qingfeng's mountain peak that was trapped inside earlier. At this moment, the translucent barrier seemed to be shrouded in a thin layer of smoke, concealing everything inside. Mo Yun's face turned completely cold. Continue to wait. The Black Sword sect was not the only one waiting. The onlookers also began a long and torturous wait. Because there was no way to see what was going on inside, time passed even more uninteresting and torturous. If they had seen Sanson and the others die with their own eyes, they wouldn't have thought about it. However, that was not the case now. After those people entered the barrier, the entire barrier underwent a huge change. This was suspicious. Mo Yun's eyes stared intently. Some scattered discussions came from the surroundings. Isn't this flame too strange? How could this happen? I also feel that something is wrong. Could it be that third boss did something to it himself? I don't think so. I saw that he was also attacked by the flames just now, and when he was pulled in, his face was indeed full of shock. It didn't seem like he was faking it. Yeah. Didn't they say that he had been in the Black Sword sect for the past few days? In such a short time, he shouldn't be able to do anything. Mo Yun put one hand behind his back and slowly clenched his fist. Chu Luiyue only felt that the boiling hot flame was tightly binding her, and a squeezing force suddenly attacked her, as if something was running over her body. Then, the heavy force disappeared, and her body relaxed. The flame also threw her forward forcefully. She quickly reacted and was about to move, but she felt that an iron arm had already wrapped around her waist from behind. She felt relieved. The next moment, Rong Xiao had already landed safely with her in his arms. Chu Luiyue raised her eyes and looked around. This was still Lan Qingfeng, but it seemed that something was not quite the same. Master! Your Highness! Are you all okay? Sanson couldn't react in time and fell flat on his face. Fortunately, he only had a few scratches, and didn't hurt his muscles or bones. Seeing that Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao had also followed in, he quickly got up and limped over. Chu Luiyue shook her head. It's okay, that flame didn't mean to hurt anyone. Sanson saw that they were indeed fine, and only then did he feel relieved. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. He moved his wrist, and there was only a shallow red burn mark on it. To an outsider, the scene just now was very thrilling, but in fact, the flame's strength was controlled very well, and it didn't really hurt them. Sanson felt lucky and puzzled, and turned his head to look around. How did we get in? Thinking carefully, the flames seemed to have done this on purpose, Chu Luiyue asked. Maybe, it's because of you and that small space. Before she finished speaking, she suddenly paused and looked up with a frown. The originally translucent barrier was now a pale white color. This color, it looked very similar to that small space. This flame is devouring the energy of heaven and earth. Rong Xiu's words shocked Chu Luiyue and Sanson. What? Chu Luiyue was full of surprise, but saw Rong Xiu staring at the burning flame at the barrier not far away. There was a faint, but not negligible aura surging around it. Invisible air currents seemed to be surging towards the burning flame. Then, the aura of the flame increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chu Luiyue's pupils suddenly shrank. This flame was indeed absorbing the energy of heaven and earth and transforming it into its own pressure. How could this be? Chu Luiyue was very shocked. She could understand that cultivators or magical beasts would devour the energy of heaven and earth. In addition, some precious treasures of heaven and earth also needed the nourishment of this energy to grow. This was also normal. But, she had never heard of a flame in the world that could devour the energy of heaven and earth and transform it into its own use. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1867. No wonder the fire could spread to such an extent in just a few days. Chu Luiyue looked at Sanson. Sanson, that small space of yours. Sanson knew what she was going to ask and shook his head. My small space shouldn't be like this. This place is indeed different. Chu Luiyue nodded, but the doubts in her heart deepened. The fire on Lanqing Peak was indeed emitting an unusual aura. At this moment, a familiar wave came from her body. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. It was the black shield again. She didn't move immediately, but looked around first. This barrier has been covered. We can't see outside, and the people outside can't see us either. Rong Xiu seemed to have guessed her thoughts, and said calmly and affirmatively. Chu Luiyue then felt more at ease. After hesitating for a moment, she summoned the black shield again. Sanson took a step back subconsciously. His small eyes were still full of nervousness. He was still traumatized by what happened last time. So much so that when he saw the black shield again, he would instinctively avoid it. His throat was dry, and his heart was beating wildly. He pointed at the black shield and asked in a trembling voice. Master, don't tell me you're going to repeat what happened that day. As he spoke, he looked up with lingering fear. He was afraid that the barrier would suddenly open and a ball of fire would burn upside down. Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. Because she was also very uncertain about this now. The ripples on the black shield were still spreading out. Buzz. 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 The wave was getting stronger and stronger, and the power contained in it was getting more and more shocking. Finally, the surrounding energy of heaven and earth gathered again and surged toward the black shield. A ray of light appeared on the shield. Although it was very weak, it couldn't be ignored. The three people present knew clearly how terrifying the light was. Sanson pointed at the black shield, his small hands trembling. He was in a bad mood. Master. It's really starting again. Chu Luiyue stared at it. In fact, she also wanted to see what the black shield was up to. The wind whistled. The surrounding energy began to surge toward them like a tide. And all the energy was continuously poured into the black shield. The vast energy seemed to have poured into a bottomless pit, and it didn't cause any waves. The only change Chu Luiyue could see was that the more energy poured in, the brighter the light on the black shield. Finally, at a certain moment, a faint cracking sound could be heard. Crack! At the edge of the shield, there was a small corner of rust that was curled up. It looked like it was about to peel off. This seems to be a little slower than that day in the small space. Chu Luiyue analyzed. Rong Xiu looked around. It's probably because the energy of heaven and earth here isn't as to be there. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Indeed, in comparison, this place could not be compared to that small space. These flames came out from under the rocks of Lan Qingfeng and formed this huge barrier. Was she the real target of these flames? Or rather, the black shield? Chu Luiyue wasn't sure. Sanson looked at Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. He let out a long sigh and didn't want to say anything. He could see that no matter what the situation was, the two of them would always be so calm and composed. Even if the fire was on their eyebrows, they wouldn't panic. He was left alone, nervous and uneasy. Looking at her master's calm appearance, Sanson suddenly felt a lot more at ease. He took a deep breath and clenched his fists. What was there to worry about? Since it had already happened, the best choice was to accept it. Besides, if there were any treasures hidden under Lanqing Peak, it would most likely belong to his master. Of course, this was a good thing. As for the ink sword sect outside, when the time came, he could go out and trick them. With this thought, Sanson felt more at ease. Anyway, Big Brother and the others were here. Would they really be bullied by the ink sword sect? Master, this shield of yours seems to be able to control the flames. Sanson quickly found the crux of the matter after putting aside those messy thoughts. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up as she pondered. It seems to be true, she didn't think about it before. Now that Sanson reminded her, she realized that it was true. She looked behind her. On the ground, there was a crevice that spread out. The blue flames were surging out from it. The night was dark, but the main hall of the Yu residence was brightly lit. Sun Yi and the others were gathered here. The atmosphere was a little tense. Big Brother, the ink sword sect brought Master and the others to Lanqing Peak. I'm afraid they don't have good intentions. Should we go over? Wu Yao was the first to speak, breaking the silence. Other than Sun Yi, he was the one with the highest ranking here. They had received the news the moment something happened to the ink sword sect. But for some reason, Big Brother didn't do anything. They couldn't help but come over. Yes. Big Brother, many people in the entire Peach Blossom Cove have gone to Lanqing Peak. Even if we go over now, we shouldn't attract any attention. Yu Jiu quickly added. Also, if we don't go, the ink sword sect will suspect us even more. They didn't act rashly because the news of Sanson and the others being locked up in the ink sword sect was sealed. But now, almost everyone knew about it. They shouldn't have anything to worry about. Sun Yi pondered for a moment and didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Yan Qing. Brother Yan, what do you think? The remaining pairs of eyes in the main hall all looked over. Yan Qing was called over by Sun Yi. Wu Yao and the others were a little confused when they saw him, but they didn't ask. Now that Sun Yi even took the initiative to ask for his opinion, they were even more nervous. What was Big Brother doing? Was he planning to join forces with Yan Qing? Yan Qing nodded. His Highness and the others should be fine for now. There's no need for us to do anything. But, if you're really worried, there's no harm in going. Yu Jiu's words make sense. Lanqing Peak's matter has already blown up. If we still don't do anything, it seems even more inappropriate. They looked at each other. Yan Qing didn't seem to be worried at all. Could it be that he really had some kind of confidence? Sunny nodded when he heard this. In that case, then. I'll go personally. As he spoke, he stood up. Big brother, the remaining people spoke in unison, clearly wanting to follow him. You guys stay here. Sunny didn't give them a chance to speak at all. Then, he looked at Enchanting. I'll leave the U residents to Brother Yen for now. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1868. As soon as he finished speaking, a trace of astonishment flashed across the faces of everyone present. What did Big Brother mean? Leaving the safety of the entire U residence in Enchanting's hands? Wasn't he trusting Enchanting too much? Hearing this, Enchanting's eyes were filled with shock for a moment. He was also shocked by Sunny's decision. However, he quickly suppressed his emotions and nodded lightly. Sunny exhorted a few more words before lifting his feet to leave. His slender green figure swiftly disappeared from everyone's sight. Enchanting narrowed his eyes. This Sunny, he seemed to know a lot. The room fell silent. Fortunately, they had been together for a period of time and were familiar with each other. So Wu Yao and the others quickly accepted their big brother's arrangement and left after greeting Enchanting. But little Hachi didn't appear from the beginning to the end. Maybe she was too tired from gathering information, or maybe she knew that Enchanting was here and didn't come on purpose. Enchanting originally wanted to ask a few people, but then he remembered that this was their personal grudge after all. It was already very troublesome to let Sunny get involved. There was no need to involve others. He thought about it but didn't say anything. As for Black Sword Sect, he pondered for a while and left quickly. It was already late at night when Sunny arrived at Launching Peak. Under the dark night sky, only Launching Peak was shining brightly. Many people had already gathered here. Sunny's arrival didn't attract anyone's attention. He chose an inconspicuous spot and stood with his hands behind his back as he looked at Launching Peak. People around looked over but didn't pay much attention. After such a big commotion, people kept coming over. They were already used to it. It's been 2 hours, but third boss and the others haven't come out. Could they have? I don't think so. Qingshui Cliff has been quiet. If something happened to him, it's impossible for there to be no movement at all. That's true. But they haven't come out. No one knows what's going on inside. Waiting like this is really torturous. If you're tired of waiting, why don't you just leave? I'm still here to see what Lan Qingfeng is hiding and whether the third boss will snatch it away. You. I'm just here to join in the fun. I'm not like some people who are delusional and trying to snatch something from the Ink Sword Sect. What nonsense are you talking about? All sorts of discussions could be heard from the surroundings. Sunny listened quietly with a calm expression. His eyes turned slightly as he glanced at Mo Yun and the others in the distance. The people of the Black Sword Sect were indeed eyeing them covetously. Even if Master and the others made it out safely, presumably, he still had to deal with this hurdle. Sunny slowly tightened his grip. The people outside were waiting anxiously. The people inside had almost forgotten the passage of time. Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged with her black shield placed in front of her. There was an energy vortex above the shield. At this moment, the surrounding energy of heaven and earth was still pouring into it continuously. Chu Luiyue had calmed down from her initial surprise, suspicion, and speculation. She was just waiting. They were waiting to see when this anomaly would end. The surrounding flames were still burning. It wasn't that Chu Luiyue wasn't curious about where the fire came from and what was hidden under Launching Peak. But the current situation did not allow her to split the mountain and find out. Therefore, she decided to focus all her attention on her black shield. Crack! Another sound was heard. Chu Luiyue perked up. The cracked rust had finally completely peeled off from the shield. Chu Luiyue heaved a long sigh of relief. Back then, in the small space, the two pieces of rust had peeled off in the blink of an eye. But to reach this place, it took several times longer than the time. But fortunately, finally, buzz. Another buzzing sound was heard, but it did not come from the shield. Chu Luiyue was stunned and looked up at the two. You. Did you hear something? Sanson quickly nodded. Yes. It seems to be. Rongxiu's eyes narrowed. It's coming from below. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Luiyue felt the ground beneath her tremble violently. Master! Look! Sanson seemed to have seen something shocking and quickly pointed behind Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked back. She saw something flying out from the burning blue flames. It turned into a dazzling light and flew towards them at high speed. Chu Luiyue remembered clearly. That was the place where the flames on Lan Qingfeng first erupted. What flew out from that place was, before Chu Luiyue could see it clearly, that thing had flown in front of her and landed on the black shield. Chu Luiyue retracted her gaze and focused on it. She saw that the place where the rust had peeled off was now covered by a piece of blue crystal. That piece of crystal was extremely thin, like blue ice. When it touched the black shield, it quickly melted and disappeared in an instant. In the next moment, the position of the shallow depression suddenly changed. Chu Luiyue inched closer and took a closer look. The complicated lines were faintly discernible. Chu Luiyue was stunned. There was a secret text engraved on the black armor. The place where the rust had peeled off faintly revealed the tip of the iceberg. It was as if the secret that had been covered in dust for a long time was finally revealed. Digression. Tomorrow at 12:00 mobile users, please browse and read for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1869. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. The secret text seemed to contain some kind of indescribable pressure and aura, which made people unconsciously revere it. Desolate, solemn, vague, and sacred. At this moment, she seemed to see the stars change and the sun and moon reincarnate from that small piece of complicated secret text. Rongxiu's low and cold voice came. Chu Luiyue suddenly came back to her senses and looked up at him. What's wrong? Rongxiu looked at her, his eyes slightly deep. You were entranced just now. Entranced? Chu Luiyue's face flashed with a trace of confusion. Sanson, who was next to her, explained. Yes. Master, you stared at that shield for a full quarter of an hour just now. We called you for a while. That scene, it was as if her soul had left her body, which really frightened her. Fortunately, Rongxiu was there and finally woke her master up. Chu Luiyue opened her mouth. A quarter of an hour. It was actually that long. She thought she just took a look. What did you see just now? Rongxiu narrowed his eyes slightly and asked softly. Chu Luiyue pursed her lips. She seemed to have seen a lot of things, but at this moment, she seemed to have seen nothing. She slightly lowered her eyes. That piece of secret text seemed to have been hidden. At a rough glance, it looked like a few traces left on the surface. If one didn't look carefully, no one would know what it was. But she was very clear in her heart that there was definitely a huge secret hidden in this black shield. Nothing, I just found that this thing seems to have more background than I expected. Chu Luiyue slightly raised the corner of her mouth. She had known before that this black shield was not an ordinary item. Now it seemed that it was obviously beyond her expectations. Recalling the moment when she saw that corner of secret text, the solemn and vast majesty that almost suffocated her, her heart still couldn't help but beat faster. It was as if the blood in his body was about to boil. A dark light flashed through Rongshio's eyes. Sanson asked curiously. Master, just now, what exactly was it that flew over? They are really coming for you, aren't they? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Didn't you see it? Although the thin blue crystal was flying very quickly, it stopped for a moment on the black shield after it landed. Logically speaking, he should be able to see it clearly. Sanson looked aggrieved. No, was Master despising him for being too weak and having poor eyesight? Seeing his expression, how could Chu Luiyue not know what he was thinking? He shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. All right, I was just asking casually. That thing came and went quickly. It's normal that you didn't see it. As she spoke, she turned to look at Rongshio. As if sensing her gaze, Rongshio raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his scarlet thin lips. It's not too late to talk about this later. We may be able to get out now. Chu Luiyue calmed down. Rongshio did see it. And it seemed that he had guessed something. Sure enough, nothing could be hidden from this man. She thought. Looking at Rongshio's reaction, could it be that he knew something about this thing? Maybe after getting out, she could find a time to ask him, we can get out. Really? Sanson was at a loss when he heard Rongshio's words. He was so nervous just now. Why did he say that they could get out in the blink of an eye? The surrounding flames were still burning, and the enchantment hadn't changed. Chu Luiyue raised his chin. Sanson, go and try. Oh. There was no reason not to listen to his master. Sanson obediently walked to the edge of the enchantment. Originally, he was very nervous, but after walking here, he realized that the aura of the enchantment seemed to have undergone a subtle change. The dangerous feeling from before seemed to have dissipated a lot. Suddenly, a white light flashed in his mind, and he exclaimed. Master! The flames stopped devouring the energy of heaven and earth. Chu Luiyue nodded. Previously, when Rongshio said that they could go out, she had already noticed this. It seemed that the thin crystal was really the secret buried in Longqing Peak. After realizing that the flames were not as dangerous as before, Sanson was much more confident. He held his breath and raised his hand again. Boom! A cluster of blue flames suddenly gushed out from his palm. Then, his hand slowly reached forward. Buzz! The enchantment seemed to have sensed something, and suddenly ripples appeared. Then, the enchantment opened. Chu Luiyue had already put away the black shield. Seeing the enchantment suddenly open, her slender white fingers moved gently. A flame suddenly swept over and tightly wrapped around Sanson's waist, and then threw him out with force. Damn! Sanson screamed. This thing came too suddenly, didn't it? There was no sign at all. Even if it was a little earlier, he could have made some preparations. With this wail, his figure was thrown out in the blink of an eye. Chu Luiyue looked at Rongshio. Shall we go too? Rongshio's eyes flashed with a faint smile, and he whispered, You have to be merciful to your husband. Chu Luiyue's face was slightly hot. This man, she looked away for a moment, and then said, I know. Her voice was so soft that it seemed to dissipate in the wind at any time, but there was a trace of undetectable firmness and gentleness. If she didn't feel sorry for her own man, would she expect others to feel sorry for him? Even if he didn't ask, she wouldn't do anything to him. Chu Luiyue was a little helpless, but also a little amused. Sometimes, this man was just too smart. While they were talking, two flames were already heading straight for them. The two figures were instantly wrapped up. The next moment, they were also thrown out by the flames. It was early in the morning, and the sky was bright. A faint light shone from behind the clouds, and half the sky was dyed with a faint layer of gold. The people who had been waiting around Lan Qingfeng for a few days and nights had already exhausted most of their energy. Suddenly, a cry of surprise spread through the silent crowd, breaking the cold atmosphere. Look! The enchantment opened. Like a bucket of cold water being poured into a pot of oil, it instantly boiled. Everyone was energized, and they all looked at the enchantment outside Lan Qingfeng. Sure enough, the enchantment that had been sealed for a whole night suddenly opened. Almost at the same time, a flame was thrown out. Dark blue flames wrapped around a round figure, and it quickly rushed out from within. It's Boss Sanson. A sharp-eyed person recognized Sanson and immediately exclaimed. He's not dead. This voice was filled with doubt and shock. Although the figure's clothes were torn, his face was covered in dust, and he looked very miserable, but he was indeed alive and well. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They all thought that after a night of suffering, Sanson would not be able to survive. In the end, he actually came out alive. At this moment, another two figures rushed out of the enchantment. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1870. Those are third boss's two followers. They actually came out. Someone muttered in shock. They couldn't be blamed for being shocked. This matter was too strange. If Sanson didn't die, they could still understand. After all, he was the owner of the small space in Qingshui Cliff. The flames he possessed were almost the same as the flames on Lanqing Peak. Everyone might be a little surprised that he could keep his life, but after thinking about it carefully, they felt that it was normal. But what's going on with those two followers? They actually followed closely and came out unscathed. Of course, the two of them didn't seem to be in good condition either. They seemed to be injured. However, compared to the number of people who had died under the blue flames, this was simply too strange. Mo Yun narrowed his eyes the moment he saw them come out. At this point, he was full of doubts about these people. He walked forward. After Sanson was thrown out, it took him a lot of effort to stabilize his body. The moment he stood still, he was acutely aware of the gazes around him. This made him tense up. He didn't need to look to know how those people were looking at him at this time. Sanson lowered his eyes, rolled his eyes, and immediately reacted. At this moment, Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu rushed out of the enchantment almost at the same time. At first glance, the three of them were wrapped in the flames and thrown out fiercely. But Sanson knew in his heart that it wasn't that easy to make these people completely believe this. Third boss. A familiar and cold voice came from behind him. Sanson's heart trembled, and he turned back to look. His face was a little panicked and confused, as if he hadn't realized what had happened. Vice Sect Leader. Mo Yun stared at him closely, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Third boss, it seems that you're really lucky. So many people tried to go in before, but they lost their lives before they even got close. Not only did you go in, but, after a night, you came out alive. Although he was smiling, there was no trace of a smile at the corner of his eyes. Especially those eyes. It was probably because he had been here for several days without sleep and rest. His eyes were bloodshot, which made him look even colder. Being stared at like this, Sanson only felt a chill rising from the soles of his feet. His heart trembled. Thank you for your concern, Vice Sect Master. I was just lucky. Mo Yun looked behind him and said word by word. The fact that third boss came out alone is a fluke. The fact that the three of you managed to escape safely isn't something that can be explained by the word fluke. Looks like third boss's ability has far exceeded our expectations. Although he felt that the scene in front of him was very strange, he did not associate it with Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu. After all, from beginning to end, the two of them really looked no different from ordinary followers. Mo Yun subconsciously attributed all these reasons to Sanson. It was normal for him to think that way. After all, Sanson was the owner of the small space in Qingshui Cliff. With such a fortuitous encounter, it was normal for him to have more confidence than ordinary people. Sanson smiled awkwardly and bitterly. This Vice Sect Master, to tell you the truth, I also don't know what's going on. Fortunately, Mo Yun did not suspect Master and the others. But now, Mo Yun's attention was obviously on him. Sanson was very clear that it would not be so easy to get away with it this time. Sure enough, after hearing his words, Mo Yun's face was expressionless. Obviously, he did not believe it. Vice Sect Master, the fire seems to be smaller. A voice came from the side. Sanson took a look and saw that it was Mo Lin who spoke. Previously, he had been standing silently by the side, looking dispirited and dejected. He was completely different from his past glory. Sanson guessed that it should be because he did not handle Lan Qingfeng's matter well, so Mo Lin was punished by Mo Yun and became like this. It was just that Mo Lin was obviously unwilling, which was why he came forward immediately. Mo Yun looked in the direction of his voice and frowned slightly. The flames that were still burning before did not continue to spread at this time. Could it be? This was also because of Sanson. Countless guesses flashed through Mo Yun's mind. Go over and take a look. Mo Yun thought for a while and made a decision. Mo Lin was shocked at first, then he clenched his teeth tightly. Yes. He knew that it was very dangerous, but it was also his only chance to turn the tables. He had to seize it. Mo Lin turned around without hesitation and went straight to the barrier on Lan Qingfeng. When he reached the barrier, he quickly mobilized the force in his body and pulled out the sword at his waist. He held the sword hilt tightly with both hands and slashed down fiercely. This move condensed 100% of his strength. A greenish-black sword light tore through the void and headed straight for the barrier. Swoosh! That originally incomparably sturdy barrier was suddenly split open. In an instant, the crowd of onlookers exclaimed. Wasn't that barrier incomparably sturdy before? Even if everyone joined forces, they still could not open it. Now, it was actually split open by Mo Lin so easily. One had to know that although Mo Lin was strong, he was also injured previously. The strength that he could exert now was only 70% to 80% of his peak strength. It's not that Mo Lin has become stronger, but the power of the barrier has weakened. Someone realized something and exclaimed softly. The people present were not stupid. Seeing this situation, their brains spun and they could almost guess what had happened. But the key point was, how did the barrier suddenly weaken? It was hard not to link this to Sanson, who had just come out. Mo Yun glanced at Sanson and said meaningfully, "Don't worry. Boss Sanson, it seems that you are really our lucky star. So many people in the Black Sword sect were unable to solve this problem, but when it came to you, you only spent a single night to solve it. If I had known, I would have invited you over earlier. Then, so many people would not have died in vain." Mo Yun did not feel heartache or regret for the deaths of those people. He just felt that it was a disgrace. There were so many people in Ink Sword sect, but they could not even compare to Sanson. All the effort they had put in the past few days had been wasted. With so many people watching, they would only think that Ink Sword sect was incompetent. Hearing this, Sanson's back was drenched in cold sweat. He was not stupid enough to think that this was really a compliment to him. On the other side, after Mo Lin split open a hole in the barrier, the entire barrier quickly dissipated. In less than 15 minutes, only the blue flames were left on the azure peak. But the momentum of the flames was also gradually decreasing. Under everyone's gaze, the flames retreated into the cracks in the mountain rocks, leaving only a low line of fire, burning quietly. Mo Yun's expression was cold. Mo Lin, you and the others continue to guard here. Mo Lin knew that he had atoned for his sins and escaped the calamity. He heaved a sigh of relief. Yes. Mo Yun turned to look at Sanson. Boss Sanson, I have some things that I would like to ask you about in detail. I wonder if it is convenient. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1871. Sanson really wanted to say, it's not convenient. However, he didn't want to die so quickly, so he nodded. It's convenient. If Vice Sect Leader has any instructions, just say it. There's no need to be so polite. Mo Yun laughed. The laughter was very strange, with a sigh and a hint of sarcasm. What kind of person is third boss? How could we offend him? Who knows, we might have to rely on third boss in the future. It's only right for us to be polite. Sanson was speechless. Mo Yun had already determined that everything was related to him. How could he refute? With so many pairs of eyes watching, the power of the barrier was indeed reduced when he entered and exited. He could even break it with a single sword strike. He wouldn't be able to clear his name even if he jumped into the Yellow River. However, compared to his master being discovered, it was better for Mo Yun and the others to place all their suspicions on him. Sanson's mood recovered a little when he thought of this. He lowered his eyes slightly, looking embarrassed and helpless. I'll just listen to Vice Sect Leader's arrangements. Mo Yun turned around and planned to return to Ink Sword Sect. Just as he took a step forward, he paused again and turned his head halfway. The matter of Lan Qingfeng has been settled. Everyone, please leave. This voice was low and cold, carrying with it a high and mighty arrogance. It was as if everyone should follow his orders and couldn't be disobeyed. The onlookers had different expressions. Previously, Ink Sword Sect had tried to cover it up. Now that the matter was out in the open, they didn't care anymore and directly ordered them to leave. This meant that they wanted to take over Lan Qingfeng. However, no matter how dissatisfied the onlookers were, no one dared to stand out and challenge Mo Yun. In the past few days, Ink Sword Sect had suffered heavy casualties, but Mo Yun didn't even blink. It was obvious that he was determined to get Lan Qingfeng. If anyone wanted to go against them, they would have to pay an extremely painful price. After Mo Yun finished speaking, he didn't care about the onlookers' reaction and turned to leave. He really didn't care about these people. At this moment, he only wanted to find Sanson and ask him what had happened inside the barrier. Sanson braced himself and followed him. Vice Sect Leader, I'll go back with you. However, my 2 followers have been tormented during this period. I wonder if you can let them go back first. Mo Yun did not turn his head and just waved his hand. They were just 2 insignificant servants. There was nothing to worry about. As long as he brought Sanson back, everything would come to light. Sanson heaved a sigh of relief and turned to Chu Luiyue. Alright, you guys can go back first. While you're at it, report to the people in the mansion that you're safe. After some time, I will naturally return. Chu Luiyue's lips moved slightly. She wanted to say something, but when she saw the look in Sanson's eyes, she finally nodded. Yes. The matter of Lan Qingfeng had finally come to an end. Other than the people from the Black Sword Sect who continued to stand guard in the vicinity, the others all left one after another. However, in the eyes of the people of Peach Blossom Dock, this matter was not truly over. After all, the fire on Lankingfeng Peak was still burning. And the secrets hidden within had yet to be revealed. Everyone began to observe, waiting for the Black Sword Sect's next move. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu were silent the entire way back to the Yu estate. Enchanting was already waiting at the main gate. Seeing the two of them return, Enchanting's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. "Your Highness, Princess." Rongxiu nodded. "Close the door." Enchanting responded and went to close the door. Chu Luiyue turned around. "Cini." The void trembled, and a figure walked out. It was Cini, who had gone to Lan Qingfeng Peak to check on the situation. When he saw Chu Luiyue and the others come out of the barrier, he wanted to go forward. However, Mo Yun was staring at him covetously. After careful consideration, he decided to wait and see. Also, because Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu pretended to be ordinary servants, it was inconvenient for him to welcome them. So, he decided to hide and secretly returned with the two of them. "Master, Your Highness." Cini bowed. Chu Luiyue glanced at the closed door. His eyes darkened. It seems that the people from Ink Sword sect won't leave so easily for a while. Besides Cini, there were a few people from Ink Sword sect who had been secretly following them. Along the way, she and Rongxiu pretended not to notice. But even when the two of them returned, those people still hadn't left. Instead, they were hiding around the Yu mansion. Obviously, Mo Yun was still very vigilant against them. "Three high gods are nothing to worry about," Cini said indifferently. "I've already left a mark on them. Once they make a move, I'll know immediately." Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. She had always trusted Cini. Hearing this, Enchanting glanced at Cini again. Three high gods were nothing to worry about. To be able to say such words, Cini's strength was probably even more shocking than he had expected, Rongxiu said. "Let's go in first and discuss." Wu Yao and the others knew that the two of them had returned and hurried over. The hall was soon bustling with noise and excitement. "Master, were you injured in Ink Sword sect these few days? Did those people do anything to you? Master and His Highness are both back. Is there a conclusion to the matter at Lan Qingfeng? Ink Sword sect seems to have suffered heavy casualties this time. Why did they let them go so easily?" Wu Yao and the others hurriedly asked as soon as they saw Chu Luiyue and Cini. 13 was the first to realize that something was wrong. "Where's third brother?" "Master, he didn't come back with you." When he said this, Wu Yao and the others realized that Sanson was really not around. Chu Luiyue looked at 13 with relief. 13 was probably the only one who could still remember Sanson at this time. He was brought back to Ink Sword sect by Mo Yun. The others were stunned. Then, Chu Luiyue briefly told them everything that had happened in the past few days, including the last night when the three of them were sucked into the boundary of Lan Qingfeng and came out in the end. Of course, she didn't mention that the black shield had been peeled off in the boundary. After hearing this, the few of them were all stunned. "Then isn't third brother in danger this time?" 13 opened his mouth and asked helplessly. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1872. Although they did not see what happened to Lan Qingfeng with their own eyes, based on what their master had said, the people from Majin sect would definitely place all their suspicions on Sanson. Sanson has a small space, and Majin sect still needs him to provide them with heavenly treasures. They won't kill him for the time being, Chu Luiyue said calmly. Moreover, after this incident, they will only be more curious about Sanson. Before they get a satisfactory answer from Sanson, they won't do anything to him. However, she was referring to the assassins. As for whether they would use some methods to deal with Sanson, no one could be sure. After all, Mo Yun, Chu Luiyue frowned slightly as she recalled that pair of cold and murderous eyes. She was not worried about Sanson's safety, but she was worried that he would be tortured. Majin sect was very evil. Who knew how they would treat him? Then, are we just going to wait like this? 13 was slightly relieved after hearing Chu Liuyue's words. However, when he thought about how Sanson was taken away by the people from Maojin's sect because of Lan Qingfeng, he still felt uneasy. Although he was young, he was extremely smart. The incident that happened on the day of the Wangshan tribulation was still vivid in his mind. In his impression, the people from Maojin's sect were all very dangerous. Now that Sanson was trapped, it was hard for him to be completely at ease. Chu Liyue did not say anything. She tapped her fingers lightly on the armrest. In fact, she had been thinking about this problem along the way. If they just waited like this and did nothing, they would be too passive. However, at the moment, they did not seem to have a suitable solution. This time, Mo Yun was determined to get some information from Sanson. He would not let Sanson go so easily. Master. At this moment, a pleasant voice was heard. Then, an enchanting and gorgeous figure floated in from the door. Master. You're finally back. Little Hachi missed you so much. As Little Hachi spoke, her body swayed as she floated towards Chu Liyue. She was about to throw herself into Chu Liyue's arms. Chu Liyue's mouth twitched. Rong Xiao looked up slightly. Little Hachi felt a chill at the back of her head and subconsciously paused. Hiss, how could I forget that this person is also here? However, Little Hachi quickly regained her composure. She turned around and retracted her foot. Colored ropes fluttered in the air as broken jade collided with each other. Only her white and eye-catching waist was exposed. She walked lightly to Chu Liyue's side. Master, Little Hachi misses you so much. Chu Liyue looked at her and kindly reminded her. Little Hachi, there are 2 marks on your face from sleeping. Although it was very shallow. But on that magnificent face, it was too conspicuous. Ah! Little Hachi was shocked. She instantly widened her eyes and covered her face. Really? Chu Liyue lifted his chin. Ask Yenqing. Yenqing was standing opposite Little Hachi. He could see her just by looking up. Actually, Chu Liyue said this on purpose. After all, in a sense, Little Hachi and Yenqing were already old enemies. Little Hachi could disregard her image in front of the 13 guards, but she would never lose face in front of her enemy. As expected, after hearing Chu Liyue's words, Little Hachi's eyes became even more frightened. She subconsciously looked up at Yenqing. Yenqing sensed the dangerous warning in her eyes. He thought for a moment and spoke gently, which was rare of him. The green wooden pillow is gentle and has the effect of sleeping. If Miss Little Hachi is worried about leaving marks after sleeping for too long, you can cover them with the cloud-weaving brocade. The cloud-weaving brocade is delicate and exquisite. I think it won't harm Little Hachi's skin. Yenqing couldn't finish the second half of his sentence. Little Hachi seemed to have suffered a great blow. She held her heart with one hand and stepped back continuously. You win. Little Hachi said in disbelief. Then, she quickly turned around and ran away. Before anyone could say anything, she had already floated around like a butterfly and disappeared without a trace. She really couldn't stay in this place any longer. The hall was completely silent. Yenqing's lips moved slightly. His handsome and cold eyes were slightly furrowed. He spoke quite politely just now. Why did it seem like he offended her again? Chu Liyue looked at Yenqing with sympathy and admiration. It was also the first time she met a man who could make Little Hachi run away in anger. He was really amazing. The remaining people, including Wu Yao, all looked at him with admiration. It was always Little Hachi who bullied them. When had they ever seen Little Hachi being humiliated repeatedly? Lord Yenqing was indeed the saint's confidant. His methods and wisdom were indeed extraordinary. Chu Luiyue gave Rong Xiao a look. His Highness has always been good at wooing his wife. How did he bring up such an insensitive man? Rong Xiao was calm and collected. I was not only good at wooing his wife. However, Yan Qing was a blockhead in this aspect. He shouldn't have placed any hopes on him. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Sometimes, people should be a little more humble. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows. He was somewhat suspicious. Am I not humble enough? Perhaps I should help you deepen her impression. Chu Luiyue choked. She was defeated again. There were some people she really couldn't beat. She should have known that she couldn't compete with Rong Xiao in this aspect. She coughed and tactfully changed the topic. Ink Sword Sect has sent a few people to secretly monitor the U residence. These people will stay in the residence for the time being. As for Sanson, we'll act according to the situation. The few people looked at each other. At present, this seemed to be the most suitable choice. Yes. Ink Sword Sect. In the study, Mo Yun was sitting behind the table, leaning against the chair with his eyes closed. He seemed to be resting. However, there was a person in front of him who was respectfully kneeling on one knee and saying something. After a while, Mo Yun finally opened his eyes. That's all. That person immediately said. Vice Sect Master, that's all. There has always been a barrier outside the U residence. Our people can't get too close to avoid alerting the enemy. Mo Yun nodded, but his expression was even colder. After returning this morning, he asked Sanson a lot of questions. However, he was very dissatisfied with Sanson's answers. As long as he asked what happened inside the barrier, Sanson's description was very vague. No matter how Mo Yun asked, he insisted that he didn't know. He said that he didn't do anything from the beginning to the end. He was inexplicably pulled in and thrown out. As for why the situation changed later, he had no idea. He was obviously not telling the truth. Mo Yun wanted to investigate the situation in the U residence. However, it sounded like everything was normal in the U residence. You can leave first. Continue to monitor. If there are any abnormalities, report immediately. Mo Yun waved his hand. That person responded. Suddenly, he thought of something and said. That's right, Vice Sect Master. A few days ago, the new people in the U residence seemed to have an unusual relationship with Third Boss. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1873. Oh. How is it unusual? Mo Yun's interest was piqued as he asked. That person pondered for a moment and said, a few days ago, those people came to Peach Blossom Cove, and it seemed that Third Boss personally went to pick them up. U residents also held a welcoming ceremony. Many people know about this. And Third Boss seemed to be especially respectful to two of them. Mo Yun usually put most of his attention on Ink Sword Sect, and did not pay much attention to other things. Or rather, he did not care about those people at all. Including U residents. Although he valued Sanson, it was mainly because of that small space. Finally, U residents. Mo Yun had always thought that it was just Sanson's own entertainment. As long as it did not affect Ink Sword Sect, he did not care. When Sanson did these things that day, he did not deliberately hide it. So some people in Peach Blossom Cove knew. As long as they asked a little, they would know the general idea. Tell me, what's going on? Mo Yun was a little suspicious as he continued to ask. Although he did not know much about U residents, he knew that it was Sanson's private residence. Other than those that Sanson especially trusted, he would rarely invite other people into the U residence. Now that he actually welcomed those people with such fanfare, it could be seen that it was indeed unusual. If it was before, he would be too lazy to care about this. But now that he wanted to find the answer from Sanson, he naturally could not let go of any clues. That person lowered his head even more. Your residence is heavily guarded, and third boss seems to be especially protective of those people. After they went in, they never came out again, so we have not found out their specific identity. What he heard before was basically what he heard from others. Mo Yun sneered and stood up. I'll go and ask personally. Sanson was locked in the previous room again. Compared to the previous uneasiness, he was much more magnanimous and relieved this time. As long as Master and the rest were safe, he could temporarily put down the stone in his heart. As for himself, with that small space as his trump card, he knew that Mo Yun would not kill him. Besides, in these 2 years, he and Mo Yun had interacted many times, and knew how to fight for himself to the maximum. So, Mo Yun did not ask anything. After leaving, Sanson simply packed up and went to sleep. He was really exhausted these past few days, alright. In the end, he did not expect that not long after he fell asleep, Mo Yun actually returned. Mo Yun directly pushed the door open and entered. Seeing that Sanson was sleeping, he was speechless for a moment. Third boss seems to be enjoying himself. How could he fall asleep in such a crude place? Sanson, who was woken up, was full of anger, but he didn't dare to lose his temper. He quickly got up and bowed with a smile. This vice sect leader is too modest. If your place is considered crude, then wouldn't my place be a thatched hut? I was really too tired, so I fell asleep. Mo Yun did not pay attention to his words. His sharp eyes stared intently at him as he kept thinking. Sanson was actually able to sleep in this place. Was it because she was too confident, or did she really have a clear conscience? Third boss, there's no need to be so modest. I've heard that your manor is also extremely elegant and wealthy. Oh right, I heard that a few friends of third boss came a few days ago. Why haven't I heard you mention it? Sanson's heart sank. It turned out that Mo Yun came for this. He was obviously suspicious of the identity of his master, otherwise he would never ask such a question. Sanson's thoughts turned, but his expression was still very natural. He smiled and said, "Oh, you mean my big brother and the others?" "Yes. I specially invited them to come this time. After coming to Peach Blossom Dock, I relied on you to do some business. I wanted to invite them over to have a look, and let them know that I'm doing well here." This was basically the truth. So Sanson said it very sincerely. Even Mo Yun could not see anything wrong with it. After becoming rich, it was normal to invite one's family and friends over for a gathering. Mo Yun pondered for a moment. "Those few, are all your brothers and sisters?" Sanson smiled from ear to ear. "Yes, they're all my brothers and sisters. But we're very close." Mo Yun narrowed his eyes and suddenly laughed. "But why did I hear that there are 2 of them who are very unusual? Even third boss has to be respectful. You manner." Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiu returned to the room. She pondered for a moment, and still chose to summon the black shield. As expected, the shield had become heavier now. Chu Luiyue was almost certain that when the rust on it was completely peeled off, the engraved secret text would be completely revealed. Then, this thing would reveal its true appearance. Now, only a few pieces had fallen off, and it was already so heavy. It was almost hard to imagine how it would feel to hold it in her hand when all the rust was gone. Chu Luiyue even suspected that when the time came, if she still had her current strength, she was afraid that she could not even lift it. "Rong Xiu, do you recognize the secret text on it?" Chu Luiyue looked up and asked. Rong Xiu walked over, His deep eyes stared at the shallow dent for a while, and shook his head. I can't see it. Chu Luiyue was a little disappointed, but in fact, this was also within her expectations. Why, this shield? What's wrong with it? Looking at her solemn expression, there was a hint of worry between her eyebrows. Rongxiu reached out his hand and gently smoothed the faint wrinkles between her eyebrows. Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment, and then nodded seriously. She pointed at the black shield with a headache. I think I have to turn the entire peach blossom dock upside down. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Literally. Chu Luiyue nodded with difficulty, literally. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1874. Before Chu Luiyue could start to search the peach blossom dock, trouble had already come knocking on their door. Because the people from Black Sword sect had come. And it was Mo Yun who came personally. And with him, there was also Sanson. Previously, he had wanted to ask Sanson something, but Sanson was very tactful and could speak very well. No matter how he talked, he could not tell which sentence was the truth. In the end, Mo Yun decided to make a trip himself. His decision was very sudden. When he brought Sanson to Yu Manor, the servants of Black Sword sect who were secretly in charge of monitoring were all stunned. But at this time, Mo Yun was too lazy to care about that. Seeing Sanson return, everyone in Yu Manor was very surprised. The news quickly spread to Chu Luiyue and Rongxiu's ears. The two immediately understood, they came with ill intentions. Looks like Mo Yun did not get the answer he wanted from Sanson. Chu Luiyue muttered. Rongxiu nodded. This time, he should be coming for us. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Us? Previously, she and Rongxiu disguised themselves as servants and followed Sanson around, so they should not have revealed any flaws. Now that Mo Yun came, did he suddenly know something? Looks like this time, we don't have to bother with any disguises. Rongxiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Mo Yun wanted to see the real them. The moment Mo Yun stepped into Yu Manor, he felt that this place was very strange. There were not many servants in the manor, but there was an indescribable pressure everywhere. Walking here, he always felt like he was being watched by someone in the dark. This feeling made him very uncomfortable, but also made him even more certain of his previous guess. Sanson's Yu Manor, there were indeed many secrets hidden here. The two of them walked all the way to the main hall. Sanson was already drenched in cold sweat. Go invite Big Brother and the others over. Before he finished speaking, a tall and slender green figure had already slowly arrived. It is my Yu Manor's honor to have an esteemed guest. The voice was light and calm, with an inexplicable aura that made people feel at ease. It was Tsini. Sanson raised his head to look. When he saw that familiar face, his wildly beating heart immediately calmed down a lot. Big Brother. He hurriedly stood up and walked towards Tsini. In fact, he had a lot of things he wanted to say, but Mo Yun was behind him at this time, so he could only swallow those words. Big Brother, this is Black Sword Sect's Vice Sect Leader, Lord Mo Yun. Vice Sect Leader Mo, this is my big brother. Sanson stood in the middle and gave a simple introduction to the two. Tsini nodded slightly at Mo Yun. I am Tsini. Greetings, Vice Sect Master Mo. Mo Yun scrutinized the man in front of him. He looked to be in his 20s and wore a green robe, looking magnanimous and upright. His eyes were narrow and indifferent, revealing a bit of coldness. Such magnanimity was indeed not something an ordinary person could possess. No wonder he could make the sophisticated Sanson so obedient. Third boss, didn't a few people come to your Yu Manor a few days ago? Why is there only one person here? Mo Yun dusted his clothes with a faint arrogance on his face. I came to visit personally. Could it be that you're not even willing to give me this face? Sanson was in a difficult position when Xin Yi spoke indifferently. Wu Yao and the rest are in the backyard. I've already informed them to come over. Vice Sect Leader Mo, please wait for a moment. As soon as he finished speaking, someone came outside the door. Big brother. Is there a distinguished guest? The one who spoke was Wu Yao. He looked like he had just finished punching and his head was still sweating. Yu Jiu was with him. He was holding a wooden sword in his hand. Xin Yi glanced at it. Perhaps it was because he had been using it a little hard these few days, but Yu Jiu's wooden sword already had obvious traces of wear and tear. Looks like I'll have to change it later, Xin Yi thought silently in his heart. This is Vice Sect Leader Mo of Black Sword Sect. He raised his hand. Wu Yao and Yu Jiu immediately understood and bowed respectfully. So you're Vice Sect Leader Mo. Sorry for the disrespect. We've long heard of your great name, but we didn't expect you to come personally today. Everything else aside, Wu Yao and the rest were very clear about what to do. Their current identities were just Sanson's friends, so they naturally had to curry favor with Mo Yun. Mo Yun's gaze swept across the two of them, disapproving in his heart. Compared to Xin Yi, who had appeared first, these two were indeed not very pleasing to the eye. Not long after, Shifang also arrived. Mo Yun finally couldn't help but frown. Why are there mud spots on this person's pants? Shifang, who had just finished cleaning up the vegetable garden and was inexplicably despised, had an innocent look on his face. Didn't he just want to eat some of the vegetables he grew? Why did this vice sect leader have to show such a look of disdain? However, the other party's status was noble, so he could only suppress his dissatisfaction for now. He looked at Xin Yi. Big brother, Sister 8 has gone into seclusion to cultivate. I'm afraid she won't be able to come for a while. Xin Yi nodded in understanding. When the few people present heard this, they all revealed expressions of understanding. They had known little Hachi for so long, but they had never heard of her going into seclusion to cultivate. It was most likely that she had been angered by Yan Qing, so she went to take a bubble bath and sleep. 13th Yu was very clear about her temper, so they weren't surprised. Mo Yun originally wanted to ask more, but his expression suddenly froze. It was 13 who had come in. Sanson hurriedly said. 13th brother, why aren't you greeting Vice Sect Leader Mo? 13 obediently bowed, then stood behind Shifang. Mo Yun's gaze, however, stayed on him for quite a while. Boss San, your 13th brother seems to be quite talented. If he can enter Ink Sword Sect to cultivate, he will definitely achieve great things in the future. Sanson's heart skipped a beat. He knew that 13 had almost been snatched away by Ink Sword Sect when he went out to break through. Why did Mo Yun also seem to be very interested in 13 now that he was here? 13's talent was quite good, but what did that have to do with them? Thank you for the compliment, Vice Sect Leader Mo. It's his honor to be appreciated by you. But 13 is still young, and he has been following Big Brother and the others for so many years. I'm afraid he won't be able to get used to it. Sanson politely rejected Mo Yun's suggestion. Mo Yun's eyes narrowed slightly. Sanson was a smart person. He had already made it so obvious just now. Anyone with a brain would go with the flow and send him to Ink Sword Sect. There were so many people in Peach Blossom Cove who wanted to enter Ink Sword Sect but couldn't. Now that he took the initiative to ask, Sanson rejected him. Sanson's back was already soaked in cold sweat. But he didn't dare and didn't want to send 13 out. Even if he sensed the hidden warning in Mo Yun's eyes, he still braced himself and chose to reject. Mo Yun paused for a moment but didn't continue to dwell on this matter. He looked around. Except for that little Hachi, Boss San, is everyone here? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.